across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
My friends, just gone 4 o'clock. It's Monday afternoon. We're live across the UK. Thank you to Ian Collins. Back tomorrow between 1 and 4, the Housewives' Choice, but we're on with Drive. Loads of you getting involved across the day. Loads of people with an opinion on what really is seemingly the main news. Labour Party conference, of course. The Liverpool, they're at it. It's all going very well, apparently. Have nothing to do with it at all. But we'll bring you a report from our Sun reporter on the ground there. The Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, has just spoken. And let's just cut to the chase, because let's drop that music now if we can, because been watching this develop over the weekend. No, love the music for 20 seconds. Don't get upset. The music's lovely, but I don't want it for the rest of the time because it deflects, and it's nice at the beginning. You bald git. Now, listen, here we go. That's Big Dave's in, by the way. I wasn't talking to... Anyway, Amy's not bald. Here's the thing. Woke up on Saturday, Sunday morning, read in the newspapers, Starmer basically saying on the BBC, actually, let's watch, but he basically said Reform's immigration policy is completely and utterly racist. Let's hear what Sir Keir Starmer said yesterday on the BBC.
We are a proud, tolerant country, reasonable-minded, live and let live, and we are a diverse country where people have come here for centuries to this country to make up who we are. It is one thing to say we're going to remove illegal migrants, people who have no right to be here. I'm up for that. It is a completely different thing to say we are going to reach in to people who are lawfully here and start removing them. They are our neighbours. I do think it is a racist policy. I do think it's immoral. It needs to be called out for what it is.
Love to know your thoughts on this, because this afternoon Shabana Mahmood has stood up and she said under a Labour government, this is really interesting, migrants must prove that they contribute to society in order to settle permanently in this country. Under their proposed terms, this is Labour, suddenly they've got proposed terms, by the way. Indefinite leave to remain will depend on paying national insurance, supporting oneself without claiming benefits. It will mean a clean criminal record, volunteering in your community and speaking English to a high standard. So, as I see it, the only difference between Reform, who started this debate, and I'm not sticking up for Farage or Reform, and Labour, who have been in power for 40 months and haven't mentioned this at all, but all of a sudden it's their number one policy, probably because they can see the traction Reform are getting. The only difference is, as I see it, Reform are going to do this retrospectively. They think it's OK to say to the electorate, if you've been here for 20 years, you don't speak English, you've never worked, you're not contributing, you're not staying. Labour are saying all of that without going back. So, of course, there's now people running around going, is it going to be like America? Is a bunch of trained people and, army going to come in and take people and throw them out? Love to know your thoughts on this. 0344 499 1000. The A-team are back. Ryan is back from his holiday in Marbella. He said, it's really posh out there. I went, we'll move there. We went to put up your miserable... No, I didn't. 0344 499 1000. Jodie on the phones. Ryan will take your voice notes. Start it with, hello, Ryan. How was España? 0344 or hola. That's it. Start, hola, Ryan. That wasn't very good either. 0344 499 1000, or you can text, as ever, on Drive, 87222. The difference between Reform... in terms of migration, in leaving, staying, deportation, detaining, whatever, and Labour. I would only say this. Isn't it interesting that every time Farage sticks his head above the parapet and starts talking about things that I think the British public want to have a debate about, the other parties follow suit? Suddenly, it happened with the Conservatives, didn't it? We should leave the ECHR, said Farage. And Kevin Bennock said, we will be leaving the ECHR. I'll tell you in November at our conference, or October. Same with Labour. What do you make of it? 0344 499 1000. We'll start this afternoon's show as ever. We'll say a very good afternoon to former government special advisor James Price. JP, how are you?
Hello, my friend. How are you?
I'm all right. I think I'm all right. I'm getting older by the minute, but I'm loving it. I'm loving it. I'm not getting older. My friend. So I listened to Starmer, and I'd like actually.
Or you?
Yeah, I know it was painful, to be honest. I almost see you as an independent on this, because on the one hand we have Reform saying the indefinite, leaving and staying and all that it's gone too far. There's too many people on benefits. There's too many people not speaking English. We are going to not only deal with illegal migrants, we're going to deal with people who have been here for years, give nothing to our society and are taking advantage. Up jumps Starmer. This is racist. This is totally wrong. These are our neighbours. They live in our communities. That, I guess, is their approach, and they think that will work. And then today, Shabana Mahmood saying almost entirely the same, but not retrospectively. As a Tory, let's be perfectly fair, where do you sit on this migration discussion about this, this right to remain? Where do you stand? That's my phone, by the way. I didn't have it on silent. I do apologise. That was totally unprofessional, wasn't it?
That was me just calling you just to try and distract you.
Thanks, mate. Yeah.
Where do I stand on this? Look, I mean, the Conservative Party pledged to reduce immigration to the tens of thousands, and it didn't do it. Under David Cameron, the same under Theresa May, didn't do it. Same under Boris, and it definitely didn't do it. And as Robert Jenrick has said, that the Boris wave is probably the worst public policy decision of his lifetime. And Robert Jenrick was someone who was bold and principled enough to resign from Rishi Sunak's government when he wasn't willing to do the sorts of things needed to be done to reduce certainly illegal immigration, let alone dealing with the kind of economic changes that will be needed to deal with the legal stuff. And going back, Tony Blair promised it would go down, then it didn't, and all the way through back to the 1970s, I think every winning party has pledged to reduce immigration, and with the exception of the Blessed Margaret in the 1980s, every time it went absolutely skyrocketing up. So at this point, we are in a pretty bad situation. As you said, we're in a very bad situation where literally millions of people probably in this country now are not contributing to the exchequer, and yet are here who are not from this country and taking welfare and taking benefits and all the rest of it. And that is a pretty bad situation that we find ourselves in. And I just mentioned the Blessed Margaret Thatcher of the 1980s. Now, what she did in terms of the economy there was pretty punchy stuff, monetarism and all the rest of it. Now, the medicine there was so bitter because for 30 odd years before her, all the men had been so weak in terms of trying to govern and had let the problem get as bad as it's got to. And I think we find ourselves in a very similar situation this time around, where in an ideal world you wouldn't have to be doing anything that was mean at all, right? And yet we are now in such a pickle where I think culturally and socially there are problems, economically there are problems, and the public are getting to fever breaking point about this, and the number of people we've got in the country now who haven't bothered to assimilate are getting so particularly febrile and dangerous as well, that some quite drastic measures are now required.
That's my point, right? So I'm sort of with you entirely on that. I wonder with Farage, the view is he speaks, sometimes perhaps goes further than he does because actually he wants to stir the pot, he wants to have those debates further than anybody else, and then the Tory party or Labour in this instance suddenly fall in behind, and he's won the argument again. My simple question to you is, does deporting or challenging people who have been here for years, don't speak English, have never worked, are on benefits, are basically a drain on our society, is it a step too far for Nigel Farage to say these people should be made to leave our country as well? Because Keir Starmer says that's racist. What's your view?
No, I don't think it's racist at all. It won't, by the way, of course, be limited to people from one particular race. Unfortunately, the numbers of people that have come into this country in the last few decades has been so eye-wateringly high from all over the place. Yes, the majority have been from non-EU countries and therefore more likely to be non-white, but there'll still, I suspect, be people in different pockets of this country from European countries that don't speak English and don't contribute and all the rest of it. Now, I note that the Farage isn't going so far as to challenge people with EU settled status on any of this stuff, and they make actually a decent chunk of the welfare vote as well. So there's still some room to go if Robert Jenrick wants to try and outflank Farage from the right on this.
But do you understand where I come from when I say seemingly everybody follows? Nigel Farage seems to be out front and centre before anybody else. I mean, I know their conference was first, and then you've got Labour. It's very exciting. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then we've got the Tories. It's almost as if, we said it before, he has the ear of the nation. He seems to be ahead of other people. I mean, I was watching Ian's show with that Dale Vince with the scarf, that bloke that owns Forest Green. I mean, he's apparently done a gig poll saying that actually there isn't mass dissatisfaction with Labour in this country, and that this country is not not as divided as people would have you believe. But at the bottom, he also admitted that the reform are there. He also said something which I wanted to ask you. He said this is a protest vote. The support for reform is shallow. It's based entirely on dissatisfaction. I was shouting at the screen. That's how you got elected. That's how Labour got elected. It wasn't on their policies. It was on dissatisfaction. Do you, as a Tory, believe that Farage is treading the right path? Do you think it's sustainable, this sort of lead, or do you think reform will be found out?
Well, I think that Farage is very commendable these days, in particular, for coming out and having clear stances on things. And I feel bad doing this, but last week there was this horrible ID cards announcement. And, Farage is accused of being a populist. And yet, if you look at the polling, ID cards actually remarkably somehow are reasonably popular because people have been lied to, I think, and told that it will stop illegal immigration, which it won't. And yet Farage is willing to say unequivocally, this is wrong. My party leader, unfortunately, I'll say this very quietly, said, there are good arguments and bad arguments for it. And it's a gimmick, but it needs a debate.
Kemi, put your neck on the line. Come on, woman. That is the point. And it's interesting to hear that from you, that I've been saying this for months. Whether he's 63 and sees this as his only shot, I actually think there's a lot of authenticity. I have to say this to Nigel Farage, but he's not scared to give his opinion and get it wrong and mess up and not be, or appear to be, this squeaky clean, perfect politician who follows every bit of, like your leader, but also like Starmer, who follows every, let's go to a focus group, say this, sir, do this, madam, this will be absolutely... No, it doesn't. Speak from the heart and make a mistake. I think the British people are fed up with BS. I genuinely think that. Listen to this from Shabana Mahmood today. I'm willing to be unpopular to stop the boat, she said in her maiden conference speech as Home Secretary. Watch James Price going to go nuts. Today, she said, the boats continue to arrive, so I, as Home Secretary, will do whatever it takes to secure our borders, cracking down on the criminal gangs behind the trade. He's looking out the window. In solving this crisis, you may not always like what I do. We will have to question some of the assumptions and legal constraints that have lasted for a generation and more. But unless we have control of our borders and until we can decide who comes in and who goes, we will never be the open, tolerant and generous country that I know you all believe in. See, that rhetoric from our Home Secretary, if that had been day one, I'm being completely serious here, I'm going to surprise myself. If that had been day one of the Labour Party in power, I'd have gone, that's actually quite good. But it's all reactive. There's nothing in my mind, I'm afraid, about the main two parties at this moment, JP, which is proactive. And that's why Farage, I think, is winning the argument. There might be holes in his policies. He might be torn to shreds. He might not be the next Prime Minister. But in terms of grasping the ear, feeling it in the country, he's there. What's that about? Why didn't she say that 12 months ago?
Yeah, very, very racist from Shabana Mahmood, according to what the Prime Minister says is racist.
Yeah.
This idea of how dare she say that people coming into this country should not have a criminal record? Very, very bigoted. That's what Rachel Reeves tells me and David Lammy tells me and Prime Minister Keir Starmer tells me. Very, very racist. No, actually, as you say, Shabana Mahmood, I think, is pretty good by comparison to the rest of her colleagues. And she does hit the nail on the head there of talking about the legal issue. And I've spoken till I'm blue in the face with you about this, and I'm sure bored people by going on about the importance of changing the kind of thicket of legislation and the rule of lawyers that has overtaken the rule of law on this. But she's dead right. And if you want to fix the boat issue, that's how you do it. I just don't think that she will be able to do that because it will go up against Keir Starmer's entire beloved life's work of international law.
Absolutely.
And that weasel Hermer, the Attorney General, who's never found a case against Britain he didn't want to slavishly campaign for. And I do think that the kind of outsider nature of Farage will make it easier for him, if he were to win, to smash up all of the kinds of quangocracy and the kind of bad law that we've had.
I think he starts from scratch, doesn't he? Listen, today, very quickly, a record 125 migrants, if you're just tuning into drive time, arrived on a mega dinghy. This was just, yesterday maybe, just hours after Starmer branded Farage's migration plan racist. The migrants came over from France on a weekend when at least 3 other people, including a child, died. The number of people on board breaks a previous record. We're now doing stories on how big the boat can be, for God's sake. But the truth of the matter is that I think the British people have got to a point where They don't. I mean, I have people say to me, "Yeah, Nigel Farage can say that, but will he actually be able to do it?" But I think there's a groundswell, which is, well, they haven't worked and they haven't worked. What's different? Are you all right to take a call with me quickly? Is that all right, pal? We're heading north to Birmingham, mate. Michael, you're on drive. All right, our kid. How are you?
I'm all right. I don't have that accent. But,
Oh, you're a posh Birmingham. Where are you in Birmingham, Michael? Good afternoon.
Shirley Solihull, but Shabima Mahmood used to be my MP. So I would rather put my hand in a sack containing a puff adder than trust her. So forget what she says. But what I was going to say, if Farage is right wing because of his immigration and going back over cases, goodness knows what I am. Because I think we should go back and review every single case over the last 25 years. And if anybody's lied, gone away on holiday when they were claiming asylum, it's from a country that's now safe, I don't care how good they are, I don't care how much they say they've contributed, back you go. And who says that care workers could bring all their families? Where did that come into it? I've worked abroad before now, and the country didn't entitle me to bring my family and the cat.
Do you think that Farage's policy, as described by Keir Starmer, is racist and is frightening and takes politics to a dangerous level, as the Labour Party have been saying today at their conference?
Couldn't care less what they say or what they think. It's what's needed. We're in emergency times. And just to prove it's not racist, by the way, and this might blow controversy out of the water, I would review the EU people that were allowed to settle here after Brexit as well. Because the EU have done us no favours ever since we left, so we should be looking at the people that are citizens here.
If I can just point out for people tuning in thinking that's Michael from Birmingham, I worked in Birmingham for many years. Shirley's very posh, James. It's very posh. You get out the bath to have a wee in, Shirley. Got to say, Mike, completely agree with you. JP, what do you make of what Michael said?
Yeah, well, I think the really interesting bit here is just how fed up people are with this fact that there have been so many people who've gamed the system, and we feel this story after story after story after story, and to suggest that it's in any way racist to be worried about these things is for the birds. I think the big challenge is going to be, whether it's Reform or the Conservatives, is getting the sequencing right once they step in through that famous big black door and actually having a plan ready on day one. I've just been doing some reading about the 1970s and the Thatcher revolution, and there's a sort of the assumption now, whatever you think about Thatcher, and obviously I think that the only thing ever wrong with her was that she didn't like beards very much and that she just walked on water. The idea is that she had a plan and that she went in and she implemented it. It's actually not what happened, not nearly what happened. There were clever thinkers around her, but because she had to keep all the wets on side for so long in her own party, when she got in through the door, that was really when the hard work started. And I don't think that either the Reform Party or a Conservative Party or a coalition of the two or anything else can afford that luxury.
No,
so I
can't.
think everyone listening needs to get in touch with, if it's a Tory MP or a Reform MP. But by the way, the first bit will be not taking so many chunks out of each other that the Labour Party somehow undeservedly survive. But the next bit is doing the heavy, boring thinking of how all these policy bits link up with one another. It's no good coming in and then suddenly the civil service go, oh, how marvellous.
But with respect, and you're a Tory, and I was all my life until the last election, it's not helping, and it hasn't helped when Tories stand up and also have said, you know, Farage's policies are to the right, far right, because I believe that a majority of them are exactly what the Tory party that we remember in the 80s was talking about. Can I just give you one final story which will send JP finally through the ceiling? If you're watching on YouTube, a Labour-run council in Derby, look at his face, he's gone, is set to begin ripping down hundreds of St George's flags from lampposts and walls across the city. They've offered residents a chance to collect their flags before they begin the widespread removal of them. Over the past month, the streets of Derby, like many other towns across the United Kingdom, my friends, have become adorned in flags known as Operation Raise the Colours. The movement has led to communities across the country having flags, main areas Bradford and Newcastle and Norwich and the Isle of Wight, in defiance of council bans. But now a council has called for an end to these patriotic displays, saying members of the public must obtain admission, and we're ripping them down. Another Labour-controlled council. Apparently, he loves the flag, Starmer, but his councillors don't seem to feel the same, my friend.
I just, honestly, Jezza, I mean, these people... I'm lost for words with this stuff. I'm not putting this on.
I know you're not.
People know my wife's American, and you go over to the United States and you see the Stars and Stripes adorning everywhere, even in very blue city like Chicago. One fire truck we counted had 11 US flags all over it, whether decaled
Live there. Unbelievable. Love it.
And it's this fact, right, that just in case people have forgotten after years of being stuck under the European Union's yoke, that we had in this country a presumption of legality. Unless there was a specific law passed by a sovereign parliament that said you can't do X, then you were allowed to do it. And it was the European system, the Napoleonic Code, that said actually there should be laws to allow you to do stuff. And we have managed very, very quickly to move from our wonderful, beautiful Anglo-Saxon common law system to this other system that says unless you get a bloody license or something from a little council mini authoritarian, then you're not allowed to fly the flag of your own country. It's happened in my building here, where I put flags up and I had some little Jobsworth come and quote some kind of nonsense code at me saying you actually can't do that and all the rest of it. Meanwhile, if it had been a Palestine flag or if it had been an LGBT pride progress, whatever it was, no one would dare say it about that. And I think it's a pretty emblematic symbol of how far we've fallen and how much we need to change this country before it's too late.
Could not agree more. Love having you on, my friend. My regards to Mrs. P. And as ever, we thank you so much indeed. James Prowse, live and exclusive on Talk Drive. What is it? 4:22. It's Monday. So the big question is this. Farage stands up on Saturday and basically says, this right to remain is no longer acceptable. If I become the Prime Minister, you are going to have to prove your worth to the United Kingdom. You're going to have to work. You're going to have to pay tax and national insurance. You're going to have to speak this language. Of course, people are different colours and different creeds, but we want you to embrace our country. This is racist, said Labour. This is utterly racist and disgusting and shows you how far this country has fallen. Today, Shabana Mahmood, the new Home Secretary, talks about under proposed reforms, all of a sudden, Labour will depend on you. If you want to stay, this is under Labour, you'll have to pay national insurance, you'll have to support yourself without claiming benefits, you'll have to have a clean criminal record, you must volunteer in the community and speak English to a high standard. The difference between the two is Labour are doing it from this moment. From this moment, only because Farage spoke about it, I believe. Not sticking up for him. He says, I'm going back. If you've been here for 20, 15, 20 years and you've been scamming us, sorry, you're going as well. What do you make of it? 0344 499 1000. Talk Drives on.
You are not racist if you are concerned about people breaking into this country illegally, who are raping our women, stealing our jobs and changing our culture, all of which is happening en masse every single...
125 in one boat at the weekend.
They have literally invented another type of boats. They're calling it the mega dinghy, and 120 people are coming over. At the lowest estimate, each one of those people costs us £500,000.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
About 4:27, we're live across the UK. We've got a Ryan Saby at the Labour Party conference with the Sun, of course, very soon. A couple of voice notes and a call first. Kate's in London, go.
Well, Mahmood's speech was laughable at best, and quite frankly, I have no faith in Labour, past or present, let alone future. So I suppose we'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, just lately, the whole party and all their speeches, Starmer included, they're just so incredibly tone deaf to what's going on. And quite frankly, they have no respect and just keep closing their ears off, really. See no evil, hear no evil. Is that the saying? It's quite sad, really, and I worry for the future.
Couldn't agree more, Kate. By the way, on this station, you were not here.
You are fake news, okay? You're fake news.
No, you won't hear that on this station. Jack's on Labour, go. Go!
Hola, Ryan. How was España? Afternoon, JK. I mean, this government's got its head screwed on backwards, surely. They want to bring in digital ID cards that no one wants. They want to call all of reforms policy racist. You know, the policy that the majority of the country want doing. Bunch of donkeys, mate.
Brilliant. A bunch of donkeys, that's great. Now, this is not fake news. This is breaking news at 4:28. This is a Labour poll that has just come out. This is flashed up on the news rounds. A poll of 700 Labour members taken a week ago by YouGov, one of the most respected poll bodies, by YouGov, found that 62% of Labour would vote for Andy Burnham, and our Prime Minister would only get 29%. Andy Burnham is a live-wire chance the Labour Party believe they could displace Keir Starmer and he'd be the man that would take the fight to Nigel Farage. Interesting. Andy Burnham will beat Sir Keir Starmer among Labour members by 2-1 if there was a contest. It's not going to be a contest. Let's go to Liverpool. Let's go to the party conference, the Labour Party conference, an hugely excited moment. Ryan Saby, are you having fun, my friend?
As always, Jeremy, when I'm up here, Labour Party conference, yeah, no, we are. It's really, really busy. There's lots going on, we're just Andy. It's the Andy Burnham show, basically. We are following him around at every single fringe event that he's at.
Can I ask you about Andy Burnham, because that Sky poll's just been in, we've just broken it here on Talk. This poll of 704 Labour members taken a week ago by YouGov, it's a small portion, but says that 62% would vote for Andy Burnham. Let's just remind people, Andy Burnham was an MP. He failed twice to win the leadership of the Labour Party. He became mayor in Manchester. He made that his kingdom, his fiefdom. He's carped from the side really. Last week he spoke, I think, about how Labour needed to change course. He talked about a bigger wealth tax. Basically, he's your archetypal union-backed Labourite, isn't he? Let's just tax the rich and do nothing else. And yet he seems to be getting traction. Is it genuine, this, or is it nothing more than a distraction for Starmer? Or should Starmer genuinely be worried about a leadership challenge? Because he's not even in the Commons, and I ain't seeing him winning a seat in Manchester, by the way.
Yeah, no, I think when you come, as you just say there with the Manchester seat, if he goes for a Manchester seat or anywhere across the north, he's going to find it really, really difficult, because the Reform Party are going to throw the kitchen sink at that seat and probably win it. So he's got to be very, very careful. Now, one theory being put around here at the Labour Party conference is whether Andy Burnham is actually doing the dirty work for someone else? Is he just sort of trying to create this climate where everyone's feeling very uneasy about Sir Keir Starmer? So when next year, when we have these local elections, Welsh, Scottish elections, that actually it's somebody else who actually comes up and tries to knock. Let's
have that conversation, though. Let's have that conversation, because I was looking at some data last week about cabinet ministers, prevalent people in the party, and how popular they are. At the very bottom now is the man that I thought would end up with Starmer's crown, Wes Streeting. And at the very top, which I'm afraid tells me everything I need to know about Labour members, with 73% approval rating, is Ed Miliband, for Christ's sake. And you look amongst the sort of the cabinet, you know, Shabana Mahmood's the latest thing. We'll talk about her speech in a sec. But there isn't really a rising star. Is there anybody apart from Burnham who's not tainted by the last 14 months?
It seems really, really difficult, because you go through those top positions in government, whether it's, you know, the Prime Minister, obviously, you know, the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves. She's obviously had her problems when it comes to national insurance and whacking up taxes, seems to have lost the confidence of business to a certain extent. And then you sort of run through the other sort of runners and riders. Is it going to be Yvette Cooper? Well, not really, because she's been shunted out from the Home Office to be Foreign Secretary. She's not in a position. David Lammy's Deputy Prime Minister, but he's also Justice Secretary.
If he becomes the Prime Minister, I'm leaving. I'm leaving the country. If David Lammy becomes the Prime Minister, I'm going now. But there isn't anybody, Rye, is there? There isn't anybody that stands out.
No. Yeah. So you raise the issue of Wes Streeting. Wes Streeting is you know, a real favourite among a certain section of the Labour supporters, Labour voters. But I think there's that differentiation between those who vote Labour, maybe the public at large as well, and the Labour supporters. So you've got the Labour voters, the Labour supporters, you know, in their hundreds of thousands, is a very, very different electorate, or some might say selectorate, than those who are in the wider public. That's why you're seeing Wes Streeting at the bottom rather than not towards the top.
They're at conference. Obviously, there's a whole vibe in Liverpool, and you're dealing with the Sun and doing stuff for talk. One thing that came out for me in the press over the last 24 hours in the Sun, for the reports that you guys have been sending back, is it's almost like the Tories have been extinguished. It's like everything is attack Farage, attack reform. It's racist. It's far right. It's dangerous. Our country's split forever. It tells you something, does it not? That the Tories are not even in Labour's sights. The official, Her Majesty's official opposition, and I don't think this is an exaggeration, whatever anybody tells you, are becoming less relevant by the day, Ryan.
Yeah, it is absolutely staggering that Sir Keir Starmer is taking more seriously a party in Parliament that has 5 seats than a party that has 120. They're just becoming irrelevant. And I look at all through the speeches, whether it's Rachel Reeves, David Lammy, Shabana Mahmood, what they're all doing, they are focusing their fire on Nigel Farage. And you go back to the end of last week, Keir Starmer basically said the Conservative Party are dead. And he said that it's Labour versus Reform, in that, you know, that phrase that, you know, their fight is the fight for the battle of the soul of Britain. So that is where the fight and the battleground is going to be fought over the next few years. And Sir Keir Starmer, he gave that speech last week to a summit in London. He then sat down with world leaders. He seemed to roll up his sleeves a little bit and actually get, you know, some really punchy language. And I think that's where he needs to be if he's going to take the fight to reform. You know, he sees the opinion polls, he knows which way the wind is blowing, and he needs to claw some of that support back. But at the same time, he's going to start losing support to the left of him. You know, the Greens, the Independents. So and you know, this brand new Jeremy Corbyn party. So he's got to be really, really careful about which way he goes.
That's the point. If you're stuck in the middle of trying to placate all the people all the time, all the different factions, you don't end up pleasing anybody, and you don't end up getting much done. We've talked about the Tories. Let's just talk very quickly before we let you go. 2 things. So Starmer called reforms policies, you know, racist, far right, and then Shabana Mahmood today has basically, it seems to me, I mean, indefinite leave to remain will depend on paying national insurance, supporting oneself by earning money. You can't be a criminal, you must volunteer, and you must also speak good English. Now, I'm not saying there isn't a difference, because even with my small brain, the difference between the two is, retrospectively, Reform are saying there are people who've been here for years who are ripping us off, and I think they should go as well. I get that, and I get that that's what Starmer's focusing in on. But is it not right to say to you, a political expert, right, that for me, as a novice, right, Farage right now seems to always be first to the argument or first to speak, and everybody else, right, which I think resonates with people. I don't care what all the political nerds tell me. I think if the public hears somebody addressing stuff, even if they disagree, even if they think it's slightly flawed first, a bit like Trump, they go, oh, right, this man's listening, this man gets it. I think Badenoch and Starmer's big issue is they seem to be behind the 8 ball, mate, the whole time.
What the public want to see, and it's, you know, you can go back to, you know, whether it's Blair, whether it's Thatcher, what they want is leadership.
Yeah.
And they want people to come up with the big ideas and solve the problems of today. And it seems that Nigel Farage is willing to put his neck on the line and actually just say, this is what the country needs, and this is how I'm going to solve it. Now, let's just go fast forward to this time next week at the Tory party conference. Kemi Badenoch is going to talk about possibly leaving the European Convention of Human Rights to try and solve that small boats problem, try and sort out deportations. Nigel Farage has had that policy 6 months or a year ago. So they're all playing catch up with Nigel Farage, and that's their biggest problem. They look to Nigel Farage because they at least like the cut of his jib, and they like the way he's talking.
I couldn't agree more. Just final question for you. You are live there from the Labour Party conference. What is the mood? You started by talking about Andy Burnham, just to let people who are tuning in maybe now. A poll officially out in the last 10 minutes says that Andy Burnham would beat Keir Starmer 60% to about 30% in a leadership contest. Now, we know that's not going to happen because Burnham hasn't got a seat. Amongst the members on the floor, desperation, frustration, resilience, what's the vibe?
I think it depends who you talk to. I think if you talk to the MPs and the ministers, the real sort of the feedback that you get, that Andy Burnham just needs to get back in his box. He's talking about spending too much money. That's going to wreck the economy. So it's like, just get back in your box because you're unsettling Keir Starmer. You speak to the members and those delegates here, and they're more. They like what he's talking about. Yeah. Again, he actually you may not like what he's going to talk about, borrowing £40 billion to build more houses, but at least you know the direction of travel. And I think that's a big problem for Keir Starmer. Not many people know where he's coming from, and that's been part of his problem. What is his big story, over the last year? What is his big story over the next 3 or 4 years? I think he seems to be trying to find out himself. And if he doesn't know, the public have got no chance.
Completely, mate. Listen, great to have you on, Ryan, and thank you to the team. The Sun, they're doing a great job in Liverpool. Labour Party conference will keep you updated. The excitement of it all in the next 24 hours. Ryan, super excited, aren't you, Ryan, about it all? 0344 499 1000. Some texts and some calls coming up. And ahead of 5, a really interesting guest, actually. Dan Barker is a board member for Reform UK, because I want to ask him the difference between what Labour has today said and what they have said, and how they stand in front of people and say, if you've been here 20 years and you're ripping us off, you've got to go. Do they believe that's going to work or not? We're back in 3 on Talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
I am his fluffer. He's here from 7 o'clock. Kev O'Sullivan, Anne from 10. It's brilliant. It's brand new. Harry Cole saves the West live from Washington, D.C. Everything America, everything UK, as the world, I'm going to say, implodes. Back to the United Kingdom. Dylan, what do you make of the flag situ, bud?
I left for work this morning, driving up the road, full of flags that have been put up recently. Made me feel proud, you know, felt good. I thought, let's go get it today. There's a lot of national pride around. I'm feeling it. I had a day at work. I came home. The flags are gone. They're gone, mate. The council has taken them down. I can't believe it. Oh, what is happening? I tell you, mate, to be offended by your own flag, you have got to be an absolute lemon, haven't you? Fair play.
That is my favourite line ever. To be offended, just cut that up for me, will you? To be offended by your own flag, you've got to be a lemon. I'd say an arse, but there you go. 0344 419 1000. We're heading to the Wirral. This is the posh part of Liverpool. Robert doesn't seem to be at the Labour Party conference. Why not, Rob? It's such fun.
Hi, Jeremy. No, I couldn't make it this year, I'm afraid. I've just been too busy putting the bins out.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's no... Sorry, hold on a second. There's no point in putting your bins out, Robert, in the Wirral, because no bugger from the council's coming to pick them up. They're too busy taking the flags down.
No, not over here, Jeremy. They're very good. They're very good.
Oh.
Anyway, Andy Burnham, rising star. Today's front page of The Guardian, it says that Andy Burnham is fiscally responsible. Well, I'm old enough to remember in 2015,
and me.
Andy Burnham was embroiled in the expenses scandal, and he had to claim for a new kitchen to the tune of £16,000 or £17,000.
Yep.
And it wasn't only going on in Labour; all MPs were involved in it. But he had to write a note or a letter to whoever passed off these expenses, saying that he would suffer a divorce if this £16,000 or £17,000 new kitchen wasn't paid up. And I could not agree with you more. And I will go further. Thank you, Robert, in the Wirral. This is where Ryan's finger is going to positively hover over the dump button. I'll go further. This is my opinion, Jeremy Kyle, nobody else's. I think one of the best things that could happen to reform, right, is that if Andy Burnham did try and unseat Keir Starmer, I don't think Burnham is either likely to win a seat for the reasons we've outlined. I don't think he would be any different electorally than... That's just my opinion. He's going to placate the left. I think there's enough people in this country who don't actually go, I'm left or I'm right or a centrist, are simply saying to themselves, you know what? This is hard, mate. Life's hard and we're not racist, we're not far right, we're not far left, right? We want somebody to do something about it. Now, you might disagree with Nigel Farage. You might think Nigel Farage is for the birds. He came out and he said this indefinite leave to remain is for me, unfair. We are going to basically go back retrospectively and say to anybody that's been sponging off benefits, doesn't speak English, doesn't implement or anything about respect in our society, just seems to come here and take, you're going. Not just to people coming in, but people who have been here. Oh, my God, shock, horror. Sunday, Keir Starmer on the BBC... Yeah, you know what that is.
Fake news.
It is fake news. On the BBC, Starmer said this. Have a listen.
We are a proud, tolerant country, reasonable-minded, live and let live, and we are a diverse country where people have come here for centuries to this country to make up who we are. It is one thing to say we're going to remove illegal migrants, people who have no right to be here. I'm up for that. It is a completely different thing to say we are going to reach in to people who are lawfully here and start removing them. They are our neighbours. I do think that it is a racist policy. I do think it's immoral. It needs to be called out for what it is.
This afternoon at the Labour Party conference in Liverpool, Shabana Mahmood, the new Home Secretary, full of vitality and vim, she went for it. She basically said, under my Home Secretaryship, we're going to change course. Migrants who want to stay in this country, this is where I get confused, in order to be able to stay, will have to be working and pay national insurance, will have to support themselves without any claim on benefits, they'll have to have a clean criminal record. If they should have volunteered in the community and they should speak English to a high standard. Right, so is that racist then? Isn't that what Starmer said? Apparently the difference is the retrospective angle. Reform would go back, to which Labour and everybody's jumping up and down going, what are you going to do? It's going to be like Trump, you're going to send in ICE people. They're going to run around and go, come, you're coming with us. Let's go to Dan Barker. Good guest. I'm really pleased to have him on. A board member of Reform UK. Dan, a very good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Good, thank you. Thanks for having me on, Jeremy. How are you?
Did I see you at the conference?
You did. I was on stage briefly, and I think you were around as well.
Yeah, rolling around doing my thing. Great to have you on, Dan. Let's start with that because this is, I think, really important for a lot of people because the media will go, especially the mainstream media, that's racist, what Nigel Farage said. The difference between what Shabana Mahmood has said today and what Nigel said 48 hours ago, I mean, it is basically the retrospective angle. How do you, as a board member of Reform and somebody who's been central to looking at policy and talking about policy, how do you explain the difference between yourselves and Labour, having heard what Shabana Mahmood said this afternoon?
Well, you think about since 2010, or before even, when they've opened the floodgates, both the Tories and Labour, to immigration, and we've been giving out indefinite leave to remain like sweeties in a sweet shop very easily, a low bar. Lots of people have come in. They've not been the brightest and the best. There's been a lot of people who've come in who have been low skilled with a lot of dependents and ended up on benefits. So to look back now, I think is fair enough to say, actually, some of these decisions to award indefinite leave to remain were not right. The criteria were not right. The thresholds were not right. And we need to review that. So I don't think it's racist at all. And actually announcing a policy now at the conference by Labour that's only forward-looking is just not going to cut it with the public. And it's not going to address the current problem in any meaningful way either.
I don't disagree with the sentiment behind it. How do you answer the issue of people who have been here for years and had children who would then be deemed to be English? And is that going to be an issue, or is it going to be as clear-cut? Is it going to be as... A lot of the criticisms of Reform, Dan, would be it's easy to stand and say, what would the reality be? Would the reality be, how would they move these people out who have been here for 10, 15, 20 years?
Well, if kids have been born here, then clearly they are British citizens. There's no doubt about that, you know. So, but I think, you know, we're not saying, you know, immediately sort of scoop these people up and remove them from the country. We're saying review their status and look at putting them on a visa. Now, that's what most countries in the world would do. If you're not a citizen, you're on a visa, and there's conditions and there's time limits attached to it. And obviously, if you break the law, if you're not working, you would be removed from the country. On the other hand, if you opt for citizenship and you make a commitment and you meet the criteria, and you become a citizen, go through a legal process, that's different again. And I think, you know, indefinite leave to remain is cake and eat it. So you are a de facto citizen in the sense that you get all the access to the financial benefits. But you don't have to make a commitment to the country. And
I think, we're going to come back after a break, there's loads to talk to you about, but I think that's an example of why Nigel Farage right now has the ear, because he seems to have the political antennae to say this is what people are worried about. I've said on this show numerous times, Dan, that you couldn't, 10 years ago, if you mentioned the word immigration, you were a racist, maybe even 5 years ago. This... for me, is something that needs to be talked about. Are you all right to hang around for a little bit? Is that all right, my friend?
Pleasure, yeah.
All right, we're going to a break. We're back with Dan Barker, Reform UK board member, next on Talk Drive.
The British people, Mike, are sick and tired of having their legitimate concerns about immigration being dismissed, being belittled, of being patronised, and ultimately being smeared as racist. And I tweeted out yesterday that smearing people who raise legitimate concerns about immigration as racist is the fresh new thinking that Keir Starmer has become famous for. And that is why, by the way, he is the most unpopular Prime Minister, according to a poll that came out this week, on record.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Drive. 7 minutes to 5. We're with Dan Barker, board member of Reform UK. Dan, thanks for hanging on. We've talked about the difference between what Reform and Nigel talked about in terms of migration, indefinite leave to remain. You described it as giving out, sweets to kids. Labour today, straight out the blocks, we're going to stop indefinite leave to remain. The difference is, if you've taken the mickey for 20 years, you can stay, because we wouldn't want to be called racist. What I would like to put to you is this, as a board member. A lot of people say to me that the two main parties, well, I say the two main parties because you've got 5 MPs and all that the Labour conference is talking about is Reform. They're not talking about the Tories. They seem to follow. Farage, whether you agree with him or disagree, I was saying to Ryan Sabey from The Sun, he seems to be proactive. These other parties seem to be reactive. And because he's on the front foot, doesn't that generate conversation and debate amongst the electorate? That's surely why he's doing as well as he is, because he seems to be front and centre the whole time, man.
Nigel and Reform more generally, I mean, we are setting the political agenda. There's no doubt about it. You look at that, and I think that feeds into the polling. And that's because we're in touch with how people are thinking and feeling up and down the country, and coming up with, we're talking about it, we're pushing the Overton window. You mentioned before about, not so long ago, you couldn't have had this conversation about immigration. Now we're having the conversation. 12 months ago, I'm not sure we could have had the conversation about, ILR status, deportations, and now we're having it. Now Labour conference are having to put out policies that no one really believes they'll ever implement properly, but they're having to say it because that's the mood of the nation, is we want to talk about this stuff, we want to have the debate. And that's thanks to Nigel, and that's thanks to Reform. And I hope we continue like this all the way up to the next general election.
Well, let's talk about that. I saw somebody today say, look, this is a mere aberration. This is just... it was Dale Vince, or Vince Dale, whatever his name is, with a scarf on Ian's show. Yeah, whatever. Very green. He says this is just, this is down to Labour not having a good start. This is a protest vote. To me, that insults millions of people in this country who do not think it's about being far left or far right. These are... I said my story loads, which is I voted Tory all my life. And when I heard a Tory MP in the last election say, Nigel Farage talking about lowering taxes and getting a stronger army and navy and controlling our streets with more police and doing something about crime. This is far right. No, it's not far right. Those are traditional Tory values that I was brought up on, and I think they underestimate the British public. I really do. And for me, I wanted to ask you this. You're a Reform board member. What do you say to the people who say you're all far-right bigots, you're racist, you're completely out of it, you're dividing this country, this is utterly outrageous? What do you say?
Well, the division I think there is division in the country, but it's not down to us. It's been created in the last 25 years by Labour, New Labour, then the Tories with all the woke policies, and now Labour are doubling down on that. And what I would say about, in terms of the Conservatives, they are more like the Liberal Democrats now in all but name. They might have one or two, Tories who are right-wing, genuinely right-wing. And Danny Kruger's just joined us recently. I would say within that category. But you could argue maybe Robert Jenrick is, but would you believe he'd ever implement any of his policies that he speaks so well about? But in terms of the home of conservatism and, that kind of, what I would say is normal British value, most of the governments in the last 100 years have actually been conservative. That's the way the country leans. and they've not had that choice really. They voted for, you know, Boris and others to kind of deliver all these policies, and they did the opposite. And now they've got reform. Now reform are going to be the answer to that.
What do you say to the people who talk about inexperience, ragbag, you know, protest vote, new party, there can't be any planning? I mean, I know the answer to this because I know there's a lot of work going on backstage, in the background. It's the old showbiz person in me. But a lot of work is being done legally in terms of planning, because one of the things that struck me about this Labour Party, they must have known for 2 years they were going to be elected, Dan, to be fair. It was all about the first 100 days. The bloody woman that planned the 100 days was gone before those 100 days were up. Can you, as a board member of Reform, confirm to people that it's not just 4 years looking at polls? You are going to be working your backsides off to create scenarios, groups of people, legal whatever's answers to things so that you can hit the ground running if you are elected.
So that work's been going on since last summer, and it's growing and growing momentum. There's more and more people coming on board. We've had a lot of people who've come forward and offered their services pro bono for free because they want to save the country. They're interested in making it work. And obviously, as we get more money, we're taking people on. So that work is happening, and there's some very smart people working out in the background. You saw the public announcements recently where Zia's now got the brief for policy as well as Doge, which is saving money. Nigel made the statement that, you know, the only responsible thing to do now is to prepare for power. And that's what we're doing. You saw Nigel and Richard went to speak to the Bank of England. That wouldn't have happened 6 months ago. Now, obviously, they're having to take seriously that we could be the one, you know, formulating.
What a turnaround that is for Nigel Farage having a meeting with the bank, the governor of the Bank of England, whereas a year ago, Coots were trying to close his account, for Christ's sake. No, listen, fascinating, Dan, and really good to have you on. And please, over the next few months, let's get you on a lot more. Dan Barker, thank you, my friend, board member at Reform UK, almost 5 o'clock. We're live across the UK. I'm very happy. I've got a packet of biscuits. Look at them. Nice. Really attractive. Right, we're on. 5 o'clock. Benedict Spence on the way. What do you want to talk about? 0344 499 1000. What's the difference between Labour and Reform? Apparently, not much if you listen to Shabana Mahmood. None of this.
Such fake news.
No fake news on Talk Drive. News is next.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Right, welcome back, my friends. Just gone 5 o'clock. It is Monday afternoon. We're live across the UK on the home of common sense. Wow. Donald Trump used that phrase in his inauguration speech. Now all politicians are talking about common sense, because it is common sense. It isn't about, you know, what a focus group says or what your gut says. It should be what makes sense, common sense. Thanks for tuning in, by the way. The big debate today is reform yesterday labelled racist for daring to suggest that people who stayed in this country and have been on benefits and haven't worked and don't speak English, to get rid of these people is racist. But today, Shabana Mahmood, she stood up and she said, if you want to stay in this country, you'll have to pay national insurance and work. Let me get this right. You can't claim benefits. You must not be a criminal with a record. You must do community work and speak perfect English. So the only difference really is that Reform would look back and go, you've been here for 20 years ripping us off. You know, maybe we should review your case. And here's the most important thing, and well done to Bill. I think it's Bill, yeah. He says the main difference, Jez, between Reform and Labour on legal immigration and illegal immigration is simply this. Reform will get rid of the ECHR, which will mean legally we don't go round in circles while left-wing human rights lawyers turn us into mush. Let's get a voice note. Dan, oh, this is interesting, by the way, because this afternoon at the Labour Party conference, there'd been a poll, and Andy Burnham, the darling of the North, yes, met him. He's the mayor of Manchester. He apparently is the man that would beat Keir Starmer if there was a leadership contest. Not that he's got, by the way, a bloody seat. This is Dan, go.
All this talk of Andy Burnham pushing to take over from Keir Starmer. And you had Ryan Sabey on earlier, and he said he's heard a few rumours that Andy Burnham might be manoeuvring for someone else. Gets me thinking, there's been someone very quiet who's also a mayor, and that's Sadiq Khan. I wonder.
Oh, God, don't. No. Right, I'm going to do this all afternoon. If Sadiq, I'd have to leave. I'd have to go live in Australia. However, this is breaking news, exclusive, well, to you listening anyway. Andy Burnham, in the last 3 minutes, appears to have made somewhat of a temporary retreat. He says, I can't launch a leadership campaign because I'm not an MP. Tick. Says he'd rather be mayor of Manchester than PM, reality sticking in, and says that he never called for 40 billion more borrowing in an interview. And he also told our sister newspaper, The Times, yes to the question, he answered yes to the question, is Keir Starmer the right man to be Labour leader and Prime Minister? So, sorry, have we done another 360, Ryan? What's going on? Andy Burnham, right, walking around conference, you heard Ryan Sabey say they're following him and he's making all these things, and there's been a poll and he beat Keir Starmer, and just gone 5 o'clock and Andy Burnham's gone, no, I can't launch a leadership campaign. I'm not an MP. I quite like Manchester and being the mayor there, despite that it rains every day. I didn't ask for 40 billion, and in fact, you know what? Keir Starmer probably is the right man. Here's something about politics. Why on earth would anybody want to depose Keir Starmer right now? Think about it. They're going to head for oblivion, if you believe the polls. So I guess a lot of people are thinking, let's get him to take the crutch. Paul's in Southampton. Afternoon, sir. How are you?
Hello, Jizza. How you doing?
Not bad for a balding 60-year-old soon-to-be has-been. What can we do for you, Mr. Paul?
I'm going to ask you a very intuitive question. Now, considering that Nigel Farage holds the party line and what he does, everybody else follows, what do you think his opinion on the NHS would be if it's a positive thing, but obviously they would fly up in the opinion polls, but if it's negative, like the Liberals say it will be, they'll drop. What do you think?
What did the Liberals say about the NHS under Farage, about the possible Farage government?
Well, they said he was going to Americanise it, didn't they?
Let me ask you a question, and this is it's a really interesting one actually, because I was having a discussion over the weekend. I don't know. I'm sure that in the next few weeks and months Farage will make that known. The discussion that Farage has started on Saturday by saying perhaps we should look back at people who have got indefinite leave to remain and at least have that conversation about people who have been here for a long time and frankly aren't giving anything, they're taking advantage, right? Of course, Labour jumped up and down and said that was racist, and then they've sort of watered it down themselves today. Can I ask you a question with the NHS, right? So my son comes off his bike the other day in London, and I go to, actually, I nearly said the wrong word, West Middlesex Hospital. 7 hours. Great. Can I just say, staff amazing, ridiculous numbers of people, crazy, 7 hours, right, to have an x-ray. But except that, that's the way it goes. Is the NHS given too much money and is overfunded and badly managed? Is there an argument to be had, this is going to go down like a lead balloon, stand by the phones, that the NHS, free at the point of entry is perhaps, my friends, providing a service, again, same argument as Farage, to people who've never paid into the bloody system, and people who have paid into the system for months and years of their lives are again at the back of the queue. It's easy to stand up and say, oh, that's frightening, what does that mean? But our NHS is failing right now. We've got a massively bigger population, an older population, and we've got an NHS that still is revered as this great thing, which it is essentially, or was. I think it needs changing. Does the NHS, I mean, my problem is this. My mother needed a hip operation at the age of 80 before she passed away. I was lucky enough to be able to pay for it to go privately. If she'd been alive, it would have taken 4 years, and yet you can come in on a boat and be seen by a doctor or a nurse overnight. Now, is that wrong for me to say that? That's where I think the NHS is in problems. What do you think?
Well, luckily for you, I used to work in a hospital 40 years ago when I was a young lad, and I would say from going back then, I think the NHS has got far too much money and too many people that don't know what to do with it. It's poorly led. It's got way too much funding. I mean, even now, they're championing marrying your first cousin. What the hell's that got to do with the NHS?
Mate, I told a story 2 months ago of a midwife who phoned this show. She'd been a midwife for 27 years. I've never heard anybody more devastated in my life. She helped a woman give birth, and she lifted up the baby and said to the mother and father, congratulations, you've got a son. They said, it's not for you to decide the sex of our baby, made a complaint, and they put it on her record. The world's gone nuts. Is Nigel Farage the next Prime Minister then, in your mind, Paul?
Well, if he's not, I'll be following you out the country.
We're all leaving.
Most probably we'll start flying around the world. It's just, it has to be.
I might go with my wife, Paul, to be honest, but we love having you on the show. Thank you very much indeed. 5:10. 0344 419 1000. Marjorie says, I think this government seriously underestimates voters. There's no far right or left, just the majority of Brits are common sense voters, so we'll vote for a party that we think speaks the language that makes sense. Starmer using the racist label towards reform is disgusting. Has he learned nothing from the assassination of Charlie Kirk? Hello to Gaz in Bolton. Don't forget, Jez Burnham tried to introduce the clean air zone across the whole of Greater Manchester, which is huge. The guy would ruin Britain. Well, if you've just tuned in, Andy Burnham has sort of got to take 5 steps backwards in the last 10 minutes. Let's get our next guest on, a man for all seasons. A man who's always out in all seasons. He's ready when the Pope's about to be elected, when governments fall, and when Andy Burnham goes into retreat. A very good afternoon to Lord Benedict Spence on Talk Drive.
Hello, how are you doing?
Have you got a polo neck on there?
I have. The weather has changed. It's dreadful. I was in Cannes last week and now it's all miserable and cold.
It's such... Do you know what I love about having you on? You make me seem happy, you miserable bugger. Look, there he is. An autumnal knitwear polo neck on. Benedict, good afternoon. Let's start with that sort of retraction in the last 10 minutes from Andy Burnham. We'd been live in Liverpool for the Labour Party conference, and Ryan Sabey, the deputy political editor of The Sun, was saying that actually everybody was following Burnham, all the press, all the scribes were following him around every fringe meeting. He'd been quite critical of Keir Starmer, but it's been taken now by him. But in the last 10... Can I get that back up, please, Rai, so I can read it? In the last 10 minutes, he's basically said, no, I'm not standing, I'm not an MP. I never said that, and I think Keir Starmer's a very nice man, and goodbye. What do you think's caused that?
I mean, possibly the realization that he doesn't really have a route to become Prime Minister. He certainly doesn't even have a route to becoming an MP. But possibly, I mean, you know, I heard you say earlier that Ryan Sabey had suggested that maybe he was running a campaign on behalf of somebody else, which was a very interesting observation that I made last week.
Are you accusing Ryan Sabey of plagiarism, Benedict Spence?
I'm not accusing him of plagiarism. I think that intelligent people are able to come to their own conclusion, but I came to the conclusion first.
Who then? Who is Burnham? Who is Burnham's secret? I'm going to say something that's going to make you fall off your chair, because I've thought about this as well. Who do you think he's not Sadiq Khan?
No, it's not Sadiq Khan.
I think it's Angela Rayner.
I mean, do you know what the funny thing was? Up until the defenestration of Angela Rayner, I did think that there was every possibility there that would be where the insurgency came from. I think maybe she's slightly damaged goods right now, which would explain why, having gone on the offensive, maybe Burnham has rowed back, because perhaps those in Angela Rayner's camp, or whoever else it might be, have said, actually, we're not quite sure about the route, or maybe he's not weak enough yet, maybe now is not the time.
I'd wait. If I was plotting against Keir Starmer, I'd wait till the morning or the night of the local elections, because I think he's going to be decimated, and I don't think... And also the point I made, well, you don't need to take the rap for something that's not your doing. He actually just said, in a simple... is Keir Starmer the right man to be Labour leader and Prime Minister? He went yes and walked off. That's Andy Burnham. Let's talk about the main news story. Starmer, no. Farage on Saturday talking about this indefinite leave to remain and basically saying, and I was like that and then I read it. If you come to this country and you've been given indefinite leave to remain, you've never made an effort to speak our language, to get a job, to pay tax, you've done nothing but bring independence and go on the dole, I don't think that's an intelligent way for our country to behave. And in fact, rather than just dealing with illegal migrants coming in now, I want to go back retrospectively, because I think we're being ripped off, because I think blah, blah, blah. Out the block, Starmer yesterday on Kunzberg. This is racist, this is outrageous. And then we have Shabana Mahmood today, the new Home Secretary, quite strong language for a Labour Home Secretary, saying that indefinite leave to remain, heard nothing from Labour on this until Farage said it, will depend on paying national insurance, supporting yourself, no benefits, a clean criminal record, speak English to a high standard. So the only difference between Labour and Reform on this issue is Reform would do this retrospectively. What's your view on this, Benedict?
My view is that Labour is still catching up with where the majority of the public are. Though I still think Farage, to be honest, is following the public. I don't think he's setting the agenda. I think that he's listening to what people
surely he's setting the agenda for the... You would accept what I'm saying, whether you agree with him or not. Whether it's... Well, you don't hear from Badenoch because she's still having a review. Whether it's Badenoch or Starmer, they're never first out the blocks, are they? That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think that the public opinion on all of this has shunted much further than Westminster actually understands that it has. I think that the issue of indefinite leave to remain, I think the issue of remigration in some cases actually is now a mainstream position, and it's happened faster than Westminster and a lot of the media realise that it has happened. I think Farage was cautious on this. He needed, I think, probably to see polling before he felt confident enough to actually set out his stall. He's not leading that agenda, but he is leading the Labour Party on that agenda, because he's able to get out in front of them. Yeah. Because he's bolder than Starmer, frankly, and he doesn't live in the same bubble. Starmer coming out and saying, well, this is racist, was proper sort of 2020 sort of optics. He doesn't understand, I think, and he's also still pandering to a base that he thinks is there, that agrees with him, that also thinks, yes, this is racist, that anybody who has come here and has passed that particular test back in the day should be allowed to stay.
Well, then have citizenship or get a visa. Let's take a look at what Shabana Mahmood, his new Home Secretary, said not 24 hours after the Prime Minister said all this new talk about scrapping indefinite leave is racist. This was her about an hour ago. Have a listen, have a watch.
When people see small boats arriving on our shores, they see a country that has lost control. When they hear of widespread illegal working, undercutting British workers, they feel the system is rigged. And when they see crime unchecked on unsafe streets, they feel fearful. This was the inheritance that the Conservatives left behind for us, and their current irrelevance is the price that they have paid. So it now falls to us to rise to this challenge. If we do not, our vision of an open, tolerant and generous country will wither. And where we fail, others will succeed.
Different language, changing of sort of emphasis, Benedict, but you sit there, I mean, I sit there and watch that and think, will you actually do anything, or are you just responding? I'm not blowing smoke up Farage's backside, I'm just saying that that's the Home Secretary 24 hours after Starmer called anything about indefinite leave to remain as racist.
Yeah, I mean, for a start, that's why Shabana Mahmood was given this brief. There is a sense, I think, that because she is an ethnic minority woman, again, Labour still think in those terms, that because she is that, she can get away with saying the sort of the tougher things what maybe Starmer feels a little bit more squeamish about. But, you know, I'd go back actually to what Zia Youssef said a couple of weeks ago, which was, you know, the sort of the thing that doesn't ever get said by politicians, but it was on the subject of repatriation, of remigration, and that is that Parliament is sovereign, and things like the ECHR, as much as politicians might like to hide behind them and say, well, we can't do anything because of this, and this was passed then, and you can't just change things. That's not how politics works. That's not how Westminster works. You can change things with a simple majority, and you can circumvent treaties like that. And I think if you've got reform, saying that out loud, saying the quiet part out loud, which is that, guys, they just don't want to do this and they're using this as an excuse. When you have an insurgent party coming in and going, we've got a plan to deal with this, and this is how we'll do it, it's this nifty thing called Parliament, that's going to scare Labour, because people will turn around and go, hang on a second, yeah, I thought this was the point of a parliamentary democracy. What are you doing telling us you can't change anything?
But I get all that, and this might sound, you know, really basic to somebody with your political nerdishness. I'm going to call it intelligence, right?
Yeah.
She talks. If it was me, right? If I was a working man or woman or family unit in the north and I was listening to her, I would pick up on what she said. We want an open, tolerant and generous society. There encapsulates, in my humble opinion, as somebody's getting more interested by the day, of course they do, but they want those people in power and others before them. This is why I believe people are listening, maybe to the Greens, maybe to Reform, because we are open, we are tolerant and we are generous, but it seems to every other bugger than the people who've worked all their lives to pay their tax, live their lives correctly and never have a handout. And the reason I think the silent majority are as powerful as they are right now is for that simple reason, that priorities, we don't seem to be a priority. And I think that's a very powerful thing. And I think that whatever side you're on, that is a really relevant point, Benedict. I really do.
It is, and it's because we've reached a critical mass now. It's a critical mass of people who have always been here, have lived here their whole lives, born here, paid taxes, worked for the system, the whole thing. A critical mass of them are now being negatively affected by the fact that they are not prioritised, and on top of that, their taxes and cost of living have gone up. Juxtapose that against the fact that once upon a time we had maybe tens of thousands of people coming into this country every year, of which maybe hundreds were claiming asylum rather than coming here as legal workers. You could get away with giving those people priority when you were dealing with them in the hundreds to maybe the low tens of thousands. When it is hundreds of thousands of people, bordering on 1 million, in fact, every year, and all of those people are getting the special treatment, and all of those people are being told, you don't need to learn English, there'll be translation services, and you get full access to the NHS, and after only a couple of years, you get full access to benefits, and we can't send you home. When it's being done on that scale, then actually, yes, a lot of people that, as you say, tolerant, open, are very nice, ordinary people go, what is it that I paid into the system for?
What have I done wrong? Why am I suddenly, and I know people hate this and the left of, why do I feel like the second-class citizen in my country? And you talk about, somebody sent a really good text to me, said the difference between Reform and Labour, you can argue the toss over this independent leave to remain, is the ECHR, because I don't know anybody, and obviously I don't mix in Islington, so I'm probably going to be slagged off, right? But here's the point. I don't know anybody who doesn't think that having left the EU, whichever way you voted, we did, that's a fact, that we should still be, and all these people say to me, oh, you can't leave the ECHR because only Belarus and Russia have done that. For me, we have a government and we have a system that says, well, just get yourself a lawyer, we'll find some loopy law, we the taxpayer will pay for that, and they're ludicrous. The first thing that any government should do is leave the ECHR. I know I've heard all the arguments, legally this and legally that. I'll tell you how far in front Farage is in terms of the minds of British people. Badenoch's going to mention that next week. she's going to, as Ryan Sabey said, she's going to stand up at the conference and go, we are going to leave the ECHR. And everybody's going to go, I think you find Farage said that 6 months ago, love, whilst you've been doing your 14-month review. That's what I mean. In basic terms, I'm not saying that what Reform say is going to work. It might be the Greens. I don't know. What I'm saying is he just seems to be on the front foot in almost everything he does.
Yeah, he gets that. Perhaps he has, frankly, maybe he just has the confidence. There's no confidence in the Conservative Party, and frankly, why should there be? They've just taken the pasting of their lives. Labour, meanwhile, having thought that governing would be easy and having thought that everything would just return to normal the second they go in, have had, you know, the scare of their lives because they've realised the scale of the problem. They're also starting to understand, I think, that their ideology is inherently unable to deal with a lot of the problems that they face. How are they supposed to solve the budgetary problems if their response is just to tax everything, you know, by way of example? Farage, he has none of the sort of the historical baggage that comes with that. If we're honest, what historical baggage does he have? One referendum and he won it. You know, that, broadly speaking, there's no chip on his shoulder anymore. The pressure is off. He is soaring in the polls. And he's able to say these things that for so long were taboo in this country because the public have reached that critical mass of going, enough, we're not going to be bullied anymore, we're not going to be told we're racist or bigots, we've had enough. And he's able to sit there and go, well, yes, and I can be the person who, once we've reached that threshold, can encompass all of that because, you know, it is my moment, it is my movement. The other parties, as much as anything else, even if they had the confidence to, nobody believes that they're genuine.
Well, I was going to say, you're a Conservative commentator. Let's finish this little segment by talking about the Conservative Party. I mean, I've had more texts this afternoon about this than anything else, which is, it is extraordinary, is it not, that a government with a 170-plus landslide majority, 14 months into their power, are basically at their conference targeting a party that has 5 MPs in the Commons. The opposition, Her Majesty's official opposition, the Conservative Party, 121. I know people will say to me, the oldest party in the land, they are becoming less relevant by the day.
They are. Need to be very clear here. I'm not a member of the Conservative Party. I know lots of people seem to think that I am.
No, I know you're not, but I'm saying you're a Conservative commentator. 5 years ago, I'd have been a Conservative voter.
It's simply that lots of people assume that I am, despite the words that come from my mouth. Honestly, it's one of those things where you sort of look at it and you think, well, at some point the Tories will reach the bottom and then they'll be able to bounce back up. But we don't know where the bottom is. That could be a very, very long way away. It's not going to happen on Can Be Made Not's watch. The question will be, who else is there who can actually sort of drag it up by the bootstraps? I see maybe one person, and that's Robert Jenrick, and I don't even think that he can do it, is the thing, because I think Farage has had such a head start on that wing of the Conservative Party that they would just be playing catch-up the whole way. I don't think it would work. I think ultimately you probably want somebody like Jenrick in place for after Farage, if he becomes Prime Minister, if Reform then drops the ball, to offer a right-wing alternative. And that's the reality. We're talking maybe a decade or so, and hoping that Reform mess up. No guarantee that they do succeed, but equally, is that really the long game that you want to be playing if you're Robert Jenrick? That's a hell of a long career trajectory to maybe become Prime Minister.
Fascinating, Burton. Thank you for the fashion tips. It's autumn. It's time for a brown polo next. Lord Benedict Spence, you're a legend. Thank you very much indeed. 5:25. We're live across the UK. So much to talk about. Labour announcing this afternoon indefinite leave to remain is going to be abolished under them, but they're not going back 20 years. They're just dealing with people now, almost exactly the same as Reform, but they won't leave the ECHR. But it's different. It's a change of language from Labour. Is that a surprise? And Andy Burnham, for many people, he's walking around the conference full of enthusiasm. He's going to take on Keir Starmer. Half an hour ago, he said, no, I'm not. I'm going to stay as Mayor of Manchester. I like it there. I never said all these things, and Keir Starmer's the right man for the job. Confusion reigns in Liverpool. 5:25.
We're not accusing individual politicians or even that whole party of being racist, but we're saying that policy, that approach is, as we said, immoral, racist, unworkable. What's important here is people want practical, fair, but firm solutions. And I think British people have a real sense of fairness, and people want to see a policy that works, that's fair, and that takes tough action to make things change. And that's exactly what we're setting out. So we're not pulling our punches. We're saying, look, if you want to come in this country, if you want to have indefinite leave to remain, you have to speak English. You have to have contributed. No criminal record. No claiming benefits. All of that should be the baseline.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to 5:29. We're live across the UK. Ryan, my friends, is tired. He was away. The flight was delayed. He's yawning like a big... His little boy needs to go to bed and get his... What is wrong with it? Get your beauty sleep, you big lanky man. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. Very quickly, Jez, I came to the UK for 23 years. I came to the UK 23 years ago on an ancestry visa and have been mostly under ILR and have worked and paid into the system for that entire time. But unfortunately, I'm now very ill. I'm very worried that people like me or pensioners with a British family can be considered for deportation. I love talk and I love reform, but it's just a concern for me, Gary. I think what you have to consider, I think this is really important, it's not for me to talk about what reform will do, but you heard it from Dan Barker, I hope, the board member for Reform UK. There will be a lot of...
fake news.
There'll be a lot of that, you know, it's all racist, but the truth of the matter is every single case, I'm told, and right this Ryan, will be looked at individually. If you've paid in for 20 years and you're ill and you can't work, that's a completely different system to people who have basically never worked. I mean, I tell the story to the point where that lot go, he's off again, about the guy that picks me up at night, came with his father and two brothers from Bangladesh 30, 40 years ago, and his father said to him, work hard, pay your taxes, embrace the country, learn the language and respect the United Kingdom. He's more angry about what's happening in this country than I am. Gary's in Bristol. I need a full hip replacement. I needed a full hip replacement. Took over a year to get a referral. Yet when I got a referral, I had the operation in a private hospital within 4 weeks at a cost of £161 paid for by the NHS. Didn't that mean the NHS was already semi-privatised by subbing out all these operations to private hospitals? Yes, probably. Margaret, how are you, love, in Birmingham? I'm not buying this new gimmick from Shabana Mahmood. Over 1,000 in the last 2 days. When are they being deported? Only 6 return. We're a bloody joke. And finally, Jess, I think these councils should be ashamed or should be named and shamed. I woke up on Friday morning to these headlines. Intimidating and divisive flags will be removed, says South Gloucestershire leaders. Yes, it turned Labour at the last local elections. Jules in Bristol. You're not allowed to fly, you fag. It's racist and unacceptable. We're going to change tack at 5:31. So much in the news about the royal family. There's only one place to go. To the Haven in LA, where one of the greatest broadcasters just makes her brilliance tell every day. Kinsey Schofield, good afternoon.
Hi. It was a pretty busy news week for royal watchers, and I think you're going to think what I have to say about Prince Andrew is shocking and disappointing.
Prince Andrew, and well, first of all, yet more from the Epstein files. It's definitely going to be a feature-length sort of drama series, isn't it? The Epstein files. Prince Andrew already under the cosh. His wife outed last week as somebody who publicly disowned Jeffrey Epstein after he was found out to be a paedophile and had served time in prison. She's persona non grata. Charities have dropped her almost as much as voters have dropped Labour. Sorry, that was far too political for an American guest. But over the weekend, he also again mentioned in tapes, it's been suggested that finally our king has found a royal backbone and said, I don't want you or your unsavoury wife at my Christmas celebrations in Balmoral because it's not a great look, I'm afraid, anymore. You're going to surprise me with your comments.
I feel like he wasn't that hostile when this conversation was had, but you're right. According to the report in the Times, Andrew will not be invited to join the family at Sandringham this year.
Oh, Sandringham, not Balmoral, thank you. That's why you're good at your job and I'm rubbish.
And I feel this is where I feel guilt. I don't generally advise anyone to avoid church, but in Andrew's case, maybe he could spend a little more time in church privately rather than making headlines next to his famous family. The Daily Beast had an interesting report over the weekend that quoted one of Prince William's friends as saying, Andrew will never be photographed alongside Prince William again. And this was a real win for the Prince of Wales. I'm sorry, but I feel like the head of church, the head of the Church of England should not be regularly seen next to someone on an Epstein flight log.
Listen, I agree with that. And if I was, here you are, he's going to hover his finger over the button, but I'm allowed to have an opinion. If I thought that the Duke of York on Christmas morning was going to that church that I've been to myself with the old man because it was a religious thing, it's not. It's to be seen in public with the royals because he cannot, will not, but he should accept that it is over. He doesn't. He doesn't have that in his brain. There is no doubt that William, who will be our next king, doesn't want anything to do with him or his wife. There's obviously the added confusion of the daughters. I get all of that. But here's the interesting thing from a religious point of view. You might not like this. We're treading very carefully. The head of the church in England got divorced and got remarried in church, and there's many religious people who think that the king has been hypocritical because of that. Listen, I don't know why the king hasn't dropped the Duke of York quicker than you can say Jack, and people will say to me it's because he must have promised his mother on her deathbed that he would look after Andrew. You can do that privately, but there is no way our royal family can be seen, I think, at funerals or in any other instance anymore with that man and his wife nearby. They're done. They have to be... Just go and live somewhere in an island. Off Scotland, I don't mean, that didn't sound very good, did it?
Not the island.
Not the island, no. But do you know what I mean? I see them as trying to generate photo opportunities at the expense of what we all know is the royal family trying to do its job.
That's a really good point, and a point that should be acknowledged. I think that people really resent the Duke of York specifically because of his lack of empathy. He reminds me of Prince Harry in the fact that he just never takes any responsibility or accountability. If he showed any sort of compassion whatsoever, okay, you can say you never met Virginia Giuffre, and he has always said, I never met Virginia. Okay, you can say you never met her. We can have our own opinions as to whether or not that's true, but you should show some grace. You should be a little humble in the scenario.
There's no humility about him. Can I ask you a question? Because you have to look straight in my eyes. Why do you think the Queen favoured him as the favourite son?
Ooh, why? I really could not. I have no idea. Maybe because he was just around. By the time she was able to slow down and she had the job was something that she could do effortlessly because she was thrust into that position at such a young age, and she was surprised.
God, I miss her. God, I miss her.
I do too. Everyone was so secretive about her father's illness, even towards her own father. He didn't know how ill he was. Yeah. So maybe she was just in a more comfortable position in her role, and Prince Andrew was there, and Prince Charles was so much older and was running around in bathing suits with women throwing their arms around him because he was a hunk, and Prince Andrew was just, accessible. I don't know, because
I've got another theory, but I can't possibly say it on air. Last week, I've got a massive theory. Last week also, we heard Prince Harry arrived in this sort of 4-day trip, and he did all these charities, and he went to see the King. There was this sort of explosion over the weekend. Harry, a very serious statement saying there are dark forces, well, men in grey suits, people in grey suits, I should say, maybe women wear grey suits, I don't know. They're sabotaging my relationship. Yet again, in my humble opinion, proving that little ginger whinger can't keep his gob shut. And today, the King is reported to be saddened by the fact that yet again Harry's opened his cake hole, and it happens every single time, doesn't it?
Yes, bemused was one of the words used to describe it. What I really was so frustrated about when it comes, first of all, can we both acknowledge that had Harry not released this statement, you and I would have moved on. We would not be talking about the Sun's Saturday article that stated that it was a formal meeting, we would be moved on to the next thing. We might be talking about Harry and Meghan in New York in a few weeks accepting another participation trophy. But instead, we have elevated this article and we're talking about something that Harry himself has magnified. I mean, like how he doesn't realize that is, it just shows you, it goes to show he's.
I would not trust him to have a crap on the toilet on his own without telling somebody. I don't understand why we're wasting our time. The guy is like a colander. Do you know what a colander is? Do you have them in America?
Yes.
Just water, just holes everywhere, mate. It's just unbelievable. Going back to William, big thing on the front of the Sun today. We haven't got a picture of, we know. Front of the Sun today, get off my land. Get off my land. Now, having lived in Windsor for 7 years, William and Kate will be protected by a huge no-go area, banning locals from land near their new home. Quite right, too. The peasants are revolting. Keep them away.
I feel like it's less about the peasants and more about TMZ. TMZ, American media outlets that hide in the bushes to snap pictures of the Princess of Wales.
Seen it.
You know, there are rules against this type of behavior in the UK that American media just does not respect. And as the family grows older, the children grow older, I'm telling you, Prince George is going to be as hunky and adorable as Prince William once was, and you're going to see a rise and attention to this poor young man who's going to be king one day.
Poor young man's going to be king. He's got women throwing himself at him. It must be an absolute.
Well, I just think that they're just trying to ensure that their family stays safe, and it's less about the locals. I know they love the locals. You see so many locals roll up to church at St. George's Chapel and get to experience and enjoy those.
I think the locals, having lived there, will absolutely embrace the fact that the future king and queen are going to move onto that land, and I don't think there'll be that sadness. Can I just finish on something that you will not have an opinion on, because I love having you on? The captain of the US Ryder Cup team said, and I quote, "We're going to go to Bethpage Black in New York and kick the Europeans' asses." The behaviour of the New York fans was appalling.
I'm embarrassed. I'm sorry.
No, appalling. And we battered you. And I'm very keen on America, but I have to say we put the New Yorkers in their place, didn't we? It was appalling, some of that.
I mean, I am really embarrassed by that. I know that the Ryder Cup is traditionally, it has rowdy fans, trash talk, and lots of competitive energy, but there's a line. And what we saw here goes beyond spirited rivalry. It's embarrassing.
Have you heard what Trump said it was? Trump said they're all Democrats. All the Democrats are shouting at the European. It's completely mad.
No, I had not heard that, but I apologize on behalf of my fellow Americans.
Oh, we love you. Listen, thanks so much indeed for coming. And what time is it in LA? Some ridiculous early morning?
It's 9:40. It's fine. We're good. We're up at this hour.
You've had your yogurt and your run out. You're going to go and work out?
I had my avocado and toast.
Oh, did you? I can't have toast anymore. Gluten-free. Lovely to have you on. Thank you so much indeed. We love you. Kinsey Schofield, 20 to 6. This is Talk Drive.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Text to the 87222, Jezza Shabana Mahmood only needed to say 2 words over and over again to secure our borders: Navy and Army. Needed on the coastline line and in the international waters. Nothing else needed, says Sean. Hello to Peter Hanlon from Shrewsbury. If we were to use language like Shabana Mahmood used, we would be arrested. Why is it acceptable for someone of colour to be allowed to say the things she said? How dare she call us racist? The length these incompetent idiots, led by a narcissist, will go to keep their jobs is doing my head in. Good afternoon to Stephen Cambridge. Jezza, so surprised to see you so calm and not on a drip and oxygen. Labour say a clean criminal record. Coming over on a boat is a criminal act. Simples. I'm chilled. I'm being brought down to earth by Ryan today, who's almost semi-comatose from only having 11 hours sleep last night. Matthew Trowell. That's a great name, isn't it? Just a great name. Hey, Jez, if you have to leave to stay, you are not a UK citizen, sponging off the state, not contributing. Goodbye, says Matthew in Cheltenham. Tracy's in Staffordshire. Jez, they can say they are tightening rules on leave to stay, but we can't deport anyone. They will just claim human rights breaches and they stay. Do you think the public are stupid? No, but I suspect, Tracy, many people in politics perhaps do. Jez, sounds to me that Labour is running scared. Reform's only got 5 MPs. Yeah, Colin Larkins. Do you remember Pop Larkins? Do you remember that? It was great, wasn't it? Darling buds of May. What's the matter with me? Could we not add our facial picture to our national insurance certificate as proof of... I don't care, right? I'm not living in North Korea. I don't want one. Thank you. Andy Linton. He's seen the light. He's in Alicante. Brilliant. Great. That's going to depress me. Jez, I moved to Spain to be allowed to live here. I had to show that I could support myself and would never be a burden on Spain. I'm not entitled to free healthcare, having never contributed here. I find this all logical and acceptable. Why is this so different in the UK? And how can anyone defend supporting an immigrant who never contributes? Finally, Craig, over 284,000 British citizens were officially registered residents in Spain in late 2023. So do we all get kicked out when we throw out EU people living in the UK? Very interesting. 0344 499 1000. We'll head to the centre of the United Kingdom. Nottingham. Martin, you're on Talk Drive. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Jeremy. Nice to be on the show, and great show as normal.
On this show, there is no...
Come on, you are fake news. Okay, you're fake news.
No fake news on Jeremy Carl. Carry on.
Yeah. Regarding flags,
straight over his head.
I took my television aerial down and cancelled my subscription to the BBC because of all the lies and everything that they say.
Yes.
And I erected a George's Cross on the back of my bungalow. I then put one on the front of my garage to the left-hand side, and when the wind blown...
Why did you put it on the left and not the right?
Well, yeah, good question. But I put it there because it was awkward to put it anywhere else. And anyway, I put it there, and the neighbour came round the next day and says, "Could I have a word with you about the flag? When the wind blows, it's touching my guttering on my garage," and he asked me to remove it, which, you know, I replied in some certain terms. I wasn't going to move it.
No.
Anyway, eventually, you know, once the argument pursued, he accused me of being far right, racist.
Is it still flying?
Yes.
And what happens if they try and prosecute you? What are you going to do?
I'll go to court.
Good man. This is what I think if you're not proud of your flag.
To be offended by your own flag, you have got to be an absolute lemon.
Completely agree. Thank you, Martin in Nottingham. We'll head... See, I can't even read that. Is that Halifax? Brilliant. Andrew's in Halifax. Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Not so bad, Jeremy. Good afternoon.
Crack on.
I think the main difference between Reform's policy on this and the government's, it comes down to one word, and that's sincerity.
What do you say to the people who say it's easy for Reform to stand on the sidelines like Labour did when the Tories were imploding and make all these positive suggestions, but the reality is if they ever get in, they'll implode like the rest of them? What do you say to those people?
Well, It's along the same lines as those that say that we can't do this, that, and the other because it's too complicated.
Yeah.
And to me, outside the law of physics, nothing is impossible. It all comes down to will. If you've got a government that has enough will and enough determination, it can do it. It's as simple as that.
I completely agree.
Yeah, and can I say, you know, if anybody wants to know why so many people are turning to reform, I watched a video. It's very rare I tune in, but I watched a video on YouTube this morning, and it's called "The Fall of a British Town Centre."
Yeah,
and it centres on Oldham, and it's about 25 minutes long. And I defy anyone to watch that video and come back and tell me that multiculturalism and integration have been rip-roaring successes in this country. Because if there's one video that highlights the exact opposite.
Andrew, there's many people listening who would agree. We appreciate your call. Andrew in Halifax, not Nova Scotia. Jez, I keep hearing that your listeners are angry that the local council are taking down Union flags that Patriots have put up. Here in Hillingdon, the council have festoon lampposts in most high streets in the borough with Union Jacks and flags to commemorate the 85th anniversary of the Battle of Britain. Tony's in Ricep. Hurrah for Hillingdon Council. Jezza, within 14 months, says Neil. This isn't great. Keir Starmer, the Marxist, has made this once great country financially and morally bankrupt. Well done, all you muppets who voted this shower in. He's in Labour-obliterated Wales. Steph, I've no idea. Oh, Sam, what? Don't worry, I'm from Derby. And let me tell you this, Jezza, your story about the council taking down the flags, the consensus here is, if they get taken down, the buggers are going straight back up again. Tim's in Harrogate's posh party. Been to Harrogate, Rye? Rye's getting tired by the minute. The eyes are closing. He says, I have a friend from Madrid. Why did I do that? I didn't even sound like Madrid, did it? No, where did that come from? He's been working in England for 4 years. He's discovered onion gravy and the Toby Carvery. He is therefore fully integrated. We need more like him. Have you been to a Toby Carvery, Ryan? Have you been, Dave? Jodie, have you been to one? She went yesterday for the Toby. She loves... You see, if you knew what I had heard in my ear, shall I share it with the viewers? Did she say I like chicken, I like beef, or I like stuffing? I'll leave it with you, 10 to 6.
To be offended by your own flag, you have got to be an absolute lemon.
The simple truth is that Keir Starmer is desperately trying to regain some credibility when it comes to patriotism. And frankly, I don't think anybody is buying it. This is a party that mocks the St George's flag that people are flying from their cars and homes. Keir Starmer himself described all immigration legislation as racist, so he chucks that word around rather too loosely. The fact is, reform policies are nonsense and undeliverable, but he is trying to make himself sound tough. But frankly, I don't think anyone's buying it.
We're not accusing
British people, Mike, are sick and tired of having their legitimate concerns about immigration being dismissed, being belittled, of being patronised, and ultimately being smeared as racist. And I tweeted out yesterday that smearing people who raise legitimate concerns about immigration as racist is the fresh new thinking that Keir Starmer has become famous for. And that is why, by the way, he is the most unpopular Prime Minister, according to a poll that came
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 6 minutes to 6. Let's push the sports thing. Nice.
Sports news from the Sun.
He's back, the man, the inspiration that led me to watch the Ryder Cup. Dean Scoggins, how are you, sir?
I'm good. It was a long weekend.
I went home and I went, you know this bloke I work with, Vic? I said, his missus gone away with the kids and he's allowed to watch it all weekend. She went, what's the problem? Just watch it whenever you want. I'll take the kids out.
There you go.
That
You'll have to repay the favour next time.
Yeah, that was absolutely... you know, Ian Collins said he didn't watch it. What's wrong with him? It was the most extraordinary theatre. For a moment, I literally thought... for a while, actually, I thought that the Americans were going to do it. Two things: their behaviour, some of the fans, was utterly disgusting. They threw drinks at people. Some of the language, but to go and do it there, and to do it with the dignity and poise, was fantastic. And I, for one, would love Luke Donald to do it again in 2 years' time at Adair Manor. But what Rory McIlroy went through, and he said it today. Total respect to Justin Thomas. The only American player spent all the time saying, calm down, this is unacceptable.
Yeah, absolutely. Cheer the shots, enjoy the party, but don't cross the line. It's not, you know...
they were squeaking ducks.
Yeah, squeaking ducks. I mean, throwing drinks at the wives of the European players. It's just, yeah, it's completely what we shouldn't be talking about after that. And they dragged American golf down into the gutter.
What did Keegan Bradley say? We're going to go to Bethpage and kick their ass.
Yeah, and Shane Lowry, great picture that Shane Lowry's just put out of the team room with him lying on the sofa with the trophy, and then they had the messages that all the quotes of Keegan Bradley all around the room.
They also, on the walk down, it says Europe's only won this 15 times, and they all got marker pens and turned the 15 into 16. I thought it was brilliant theatre, didn't you?
And then it's got to be 2 more years for Luke, right? He's just spoken.
What's he saying?
I think they were all a bit bleary-eyed, it's fair to say, and deservedly so. He's not said yes, he's just not ruled it out, and he can't say yes now, can he, because he's not officially been offered it, but you know full well.
Special mention, because I know he's listening, to Darren, my mate, who caddies for Shane Lowry, the most ridiculous... When you're that excited, Dazza, he's been doing it for 3 years. He went in one direction to grab Lowry. Lowry went in the other. The worst Irish jig you've ever seen. And I said to him, that picture's going to be there forever. It's on the back of the Sun.
Let's hope they can do it again at Adair Manor next time around. Yeah.
Football. Tottenham. Well, first of all, I was right. Potter's gone. Nuno Espirito Santo. Interesting game tonight against David Moyes. I'm going to call it now. Here and now it'll be a draw.
Well, Nuno convinced West Ham board to give him the job before the game because he says he's got a plan. He's got a plan for Everton.
Quite brave
really
not to sit around against Everton and Arsenal and come in 2 weeks' time for an easy game. Respect.
Everton away, Arsenal away, and he's up for it. So,
how lucky were you? Spurs.
They were dreadful. They were absolutely dreadful. Really, really bad. But another man who's back is Jose.
Can't wait for tomorrow night. Benfica against Chelsea. Back he comes in the Champions League to Stamford Bridge.
And Enzo Maresca, who is under a little bit of pressure, lost the first Champions League game to Bayern Munich, obviously got beaten at the weekend to Brighton, and the one man that you don't want to be staring across at you and your Chelsea manager is Jose Mourinho.
He'll get a bigger cheer from the Chelsea fans.
He will, and it was a very bizarre decision from Chelsea today. So they held their press conference in the Drake Suite of Stamford Bridge, which is a lovely, lovely room, but there are pictures of Jose all around the room. So the pictures are just Jose staring down at Enzo Maresca. So, yeah, I mean, Enzo said it'll be a privilege to face Jose. He's a legend and whatever, but, yeah, I'm with you. You don't want to be sat there when Jose's in the next dugout. out, do you?
Charlie White, Arsenal correspondent, following the 2-1 comeback against Newcastle. My mates were there, they said it was utterly gutting, but it is true to say that Nick Pope was the man of the match, which says everything about how much Arsenal dominated that.
They played very, very well.
They did.
And love him or loathe him, Mikel Arteta's come out with another sort of marginal gains thing. So he wants to invite a team of RAF fighter pilots to the training ground now. And as Charlie tells us, it's all a bid to get that little bit of edge. And he says basically he talks too much, says too many words. These guys will teach me to do it in one word.
This sounds like David Brent. Can I just say to Mikel Arteta, it didn't work for the Americans. They flew jets over the Bethpage Black golf course. It doesn't. I think he probably talks too much. I don't know.
Genius and madness. There's a little bit of.
Look at the eyes, mate. When your eyebrows nearly meet in the middle, you're in trouble. Going back to the golf, this is something I was told. Did Watford win? Yeah. Well done, that makes a change. Can I just say, right, on Betfred last night, it's really interesting. Europe, at the beginning of the game, you'll know this, were 1-40 on, and the Americans were 60-1 against, but 9 of the 11 singles, the Americans were favoured head-to-head.
Wow, that's interesting.
Could have made some money.
You could have.
So, Tottenham rubbish. West Ham a draw tonight. Give us a... Come on, you'll be here tomorrow. What do you reckon?
I think 1-1? So. Draw. Players will be up for it again because they didn't want to play.
Well, maybe he spent 3 days telling him how to defend corners, for Christ's sake. Does Graham Potter ever get another job?
Not in the Premier League, I don't think.
Do you know how much money he's made?
No.
£11 million in being sacked twice. Darren Bent said to me earlier on the way in,
nice work.
Why do managers look miserable? Just take £4 million and go and sit in your house. Dino, thank you so much indeed. That tonight on TalkSport. That game, of course, West Ham under Nuno Espirito Santos taking on Everton at their new stadium. We'll get all of that. More sport with the Sun tomorrow as well. Get the newspaper. Charlie White in there, all up on Resco, and 2 more years for Luke Donald. That's 3 on a row. They will be unbearable. News at 6 is next on Talk Drive.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
There you are, my friends. Welcome back. Just gone 6 o'clock. We're live across the UK. I phoned a friend of mine earlier, who will remain anonymous. G, you know who you are. Who's got Whispering Bob Harris staying with him. I know. Very famous DJ from Radio 2. And he picked up the phone and he went, hello. And I went, what? And he went, hello. I said, why are you whispering? I said, it's the impact. He's got Bob Harris in his house. He's going, hello, how are you? Wake up, G. 2 minutes past 6. 0344 499 1000. Text 08722. We've an hour to go on the day that Labour changed direction. Well, they changed language because, of course, on Saturday when Nigel Farage said this indefinite leave to remain thing, I don't think this is acceptable on all fronts. If you're a migrant and you're a legal migrant, you come over and you can't speak our language and you don't work and you go on benefits and you bring dependents and disappear into our society and commit crimes, I think you should be sent away. But he said, I go further. I think that all the people that have been in this country, not the ones who have paid tax and worked and proven and had kids, but those who've never worked and have sponged off this society, they should also go. Their cases should be reviewed, you know, apply for citizenship, apply for a visa. It happens in every other country. Oh, Q, complete shock and horror. Racism, this is outrageous. Today, Shabana Mahmood, she said, we're changing direction on the right to relief. She says, if you haven't paid national insurance, if you even attempt to go on benefits, if you've got a criminal record or you don't speak English to a high standard, you can leave. So as I see it, and we're about to get the input of a very professional political genius, to be fair. Oh, no, we couldn't get them. Chloe Dobbs is next. The only difference for me is that the Reform Party are going retrospectively, and they're saying, look, if you've been here many years and you haven't proven your worth, we're going to be looking at your case as well. And I think that's really good. So not only are Labour suddenly being all proactive about this, also about the boat. This is the new Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood. Listen to this for a forceful comment. Go.
Today, the boats continue to arrive, and so I will do whatever it takes to secure our borders. Cracking down on the criminal gangs behind the trade, discouraging those who are considering a small boat crossing, sending those home who have no right to be here, and ending the use of hotels, that totem of the Tory legacy that has done so much to divide our communities. In solving this crisis, you may not always like what I do. We will have to question some of the assumptions and legal constraints that have lasted for a generation and more. But unless we have control of our borders, and until we can decide who comes in and who must leave, we will never be the open, tolerant and generous country that I know we all believe in.
Welcome to the show, Chloe Dobbs. So that's Shabana Mahmood, who immediately talks about independent leave to remain. We'll talk about that in a minute. This is now the new boats thing, and blah, 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 blah. 14 months in, I don't know whether she's making a stake for it. This is my point, and I made it earlier to Ryan Sobey. End of that speech, she says, what we need to be is an open, tolerant and generous society. That, to me, absolutely encapsulates where the issue is, right? Because the majority of hard-working, decent Brits listen to her speaking and they go, yeah, so you want us to be more open, you want us to be more tolerant, you want us to be more generous financially to every single person in this country, bar the ones who have grafted and paid their stamp and are now going, I feel like a second-class citizen. That's what's wrong with the Labour idea, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there's just no consistency in their rhetoric whatsoever, because on the one hand, she's saying that, which sounds a bit like, oh, we should take more migrants.
Yeah,
and then the next minute, she's copying Reform's policies. It seems like the number 10 strategy to combat Reform at the moment is call all of their policies racist and then copy their policies.
Well, the only difference, let's make the point, though, it's important. The only difference between Reform, and I want your opinion on this, and Labour, who have come 90% to the table today with something that Farage talked about 48 hours ago, which again proves to me he's proactive, everybody else seems to be reactive, is this looking back in time. Because the, hold on.
Fake news.
They've been putting, do you like that? Hold on.
I like that, that's good.
Listen, you're being rude. You're fake news. You're fake news. Stop being rude. You're fake news.
I want one of those.
Well, you're not going to. So basically, right, seriously, the mainstream media are putting out, it's racist, it's outrageous. Going back, you're going to take people who have worked here all their lives and paid their tax, and you're going to send ICE officials, commandos in and rip them away. No. They are simply saying, and we had this from Dave, I think it was Dan Barker, who's a Reform Board member earlier, that they think it's right to look at individual cases. We had a guy text me and I managed to allay his fears because he said, I worked here 20 years, I'm now very ill and I have to claim. But he's done his graft, he's entitled. They're talking about people who have come to this country, have made no aim at all to integrate, haven't learnt the language and have been on benefits along with their independence. Do you think it's fair to say to those people you need to change as well?
Completely, absolutely. I mean, you're right that there is a difference between.
You have to talk about the difference because people get confused.
There is a difference. So Labour are saying if you want to get indefinite leave to remain in future, you're going to have to.
So they won't look at the past.
You're going to have to prove that you speak English and that you contribute and you're not sponging off the state.
But what about the ones who are sponging?
Well, it seems like Labour don't want to. But when you look at the headlines of the policies, they've got the same rhetoric. I mean, when I saw the Labour announcement on the front pages this morning of their new policies, I wasn't sure if I was reading Reform's policy announcement or their policy announcement, which is very strange coming the day after Keir Starmer had called Reform's policy racist. And that interview, the other thing I want to pick up on is that interview where Keir Starmer called Reform's policy racist. He completely misconstrued their policy and was essentially lying to the public. He said, what Reform are going to do, they're going to kick out the hard-working doctors, nurses and teachers who have come to this country and made a life here and contributed. That's not what Reform are saying at all. If you're a doctor, nurse or a teacher, I hope that A, you speak English and B, you're earning some money to support yourself. That would qualify you to stay in this country. Under Reform's policy, Reform are simply just saying, if you don't bother to even speak our language and you don't bother to earn some money to take care of yourself, sorry, we're not a charity.
So as a political commentator, right, so I always say on this show, Chloe, that I've got a cousin called Chloe, that, and a nod, that 10 years ago, if I'd mentioned, or you were a baby, if I'd mentioned 10 years ago immigration, everybody would have gone racist. Now, to me, Farage is growing cojones on a daily basis and is prepared to stick his neck on the line. He's not perfect, and not only as a politician, I'm sure he's, that great story I told the other week. Have you drunk, smoked, gambled and womanized? He said all four. I'm not, I'm just a human being, right? But I think he's leading in terms of, and I keep saying this, he seems to be brave enough to speak, even if it's unpopular. It reminds me a little bit of Trump, but people will make that analogy. Everybody else seems to be following. What does it say that at the Labour Party conference in Liverpool today, Ryan Sabey from The Sun told us that there is not a mention of Her Majesty's official opposition. 121 MPs the Tories have, Reform have 5, and the Prime Minister of this majority government that had the biggest landslide forever 14 months ago talks only about Nigel Farage. That says to me that the job Reform are doing is incredible.
I mean, it's crazy. I mean, I think about maybe 6 months ago we were hearing from Labour sources in Number 10 that they thought it was a 50-50 chance whether the Conservatives or Reform would be their main opposition come the next general election. And we thought that was shocking. But now, where they're not even talking about the Tories at all, and Reform are quite clearly completely leading the national conversation. As you say, they've only got 5 MPs, and that's incredible. And it's not just at the Labour Party conference. Look what happened at the Lib Dem conference, where Ed Davey mentioned... The Lib Dem conference.
Did they have a conference?
Yes, they did.
Oh, I remember. He said Nigel Farage 32 times.
32 times in his speech. I mean, they didn't really... I mean, nobody knows what the Lib Dems stand for, and with Labour as well. They're too busy all talking about Farage. And you know what? It looks really desperate. It shows how terrified they are of Farage. Meanwhile, Nigel Farage just laughs it off. I mean, he said on Twitter, "Oh, it seems like Ed Davey's got some kind of issue because he's completely obsessed with me." He said, "I'll happily pay for you to see a therapist to sort out your derangements."
What do you say to the people? Okay. The people who aren't, who are terrified by Farage, who believe that Reform is trying to divide this country, the language and the politics, apparently I read it all the time, is divisive and wrong. This ignores millions of people. But what do you say to those people who, crave... I mean, I heard Dale Vince, the Green guy that owns Forest Green, lovely man apparently, slightly dodgy scarf earlier on the Ian Collins show, but that's just my opinion. Apparently likes me. I have nothing against the bloke, but he stood there and he said, we've done this big poll called GIB, and it shows that the United Kingdom isn't divided, much as Farage would like it to be. Reform is not as popular as people are making out. Labour have had a tough start, but what we want again, open, tolerant, generous society. And at the bottom it said Reform leading on 38% or whatever. But the truth is, a lot of people find Farage and Reform as abhorrent. They're like, oh, this is the worst thing in the world. What do you say to those people?
I think that I'd say to those people, read beyond a few headlines. Yeah. I think one reason why, for example, Trump, I think it's about 70% of the British public don't like Trump versus people who live in America, is because people who live in this country, they only read a few headlines about American politics. They don't really delve into it. And if they just see headlines that paint him out to be a Nazi, a fascist, a racist, that's what they're going to think. And I think there are a lot of people who think the same about Nigel Farage, very sadly, whereas if they actually looked into their policies, listened to them, listen to some of their press conferences rather than just what Keir Starmer has said, where he, falsely claims that they're kicking doctors, nurses and teachers out of the country. That's normal members of the public. They don't talk and read about politics as much as we do. It's not their jobs. They're busy getting on with their lives, and they hear off one person, oh, I heard Nigel Farage is going to kick all the doctors and nurses out of the country, and they think, oh gosh, what a scary guy, I better not vote for him. And that's what's so dangerous about just telling, it's such a shame that the left have to resort to name calling and lies.
But I mean, I think this is really important. I had this conversation with my daughter, who said that Farage is racist, and I explained in very calm terms. She'd read a headline or heard something or seen something on Twitter. I do believe, no disrespect to anybody, I love debate and I don't care if you have the opposite view to me. As long as I'm entitled to my opinion, you're entitled to yours. But I do think that many politicians are missing, except for Farage, and I'm not blowing smoke up his backside, the Greens might do it, but I believe that there are millions of people in this country who are discovering their voice, who are not far right or far left. They're probably just fed up with feeling that they're being battered, fed up that they can't really do anything other than go to work to break even. And whether the left like this or not, I think there's many people looking and going, can't have this anymore. I don't consider this far right. I want to, like the flags thing. Have you heard about this today? A Labour-run council is set to begin ripping down hundreds of St George's flags. This is Derby City Council. You've got till the end of the month to take your flag down. It's divisive. No, Operation Raise the Colours is apparently a disgrace. Now councils call for an end to the patriotic display, saying that members of the public must obtain permission to raise flags on street furniture in the future. That's just going to... So
that is going to wind.
Do you want to hear our bit about the flag? Have you got it ready? This is what I reckon. Listen.
To be offended by your own flag, you have got to be an absolute lemon.
It's true, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what the Derby City Council have said is, we've allowed you to have your fun for some time. We've been very kind. We support the national flag, but it's time to bring it down now. As if we should only be proud of our flag for, say, 1 month of the year. And I think. One excuse that they've given is, oh, we've got other events coming up where it won't be appropriate to have them up anymore. If it was going to be the Christmas lights turn on next week, I could understand, OK, we need the poles to put Christmas trees on and whatnot, fine. But I don't think it's time for that yet, so I think they can leave them up a little bit longer. This just seems to...
Let's have the debate then. Let's have the debate, and I'd love to hear what you think of this. 0344 499 1000. You go to America and every single public building and most private houses are adorned with their national flag. Are these people all racist? Then what is wrong? All I hear about from the bloody left is, well, this is a divisive flag. It's my flag. I don't need to reclaim my flag. I'm sure there are bad eggs or bad apples, however you describe it, rotten eggs, bad apples, in every political party, in every facet of whatever. But I don't think it works anymore for Starmer to say Farage and anybody talking about immigration is a racist and our flag is divisive. I think the British public have woken up, mate. I really, really feel strongly about it. I think they have.
I mean, look how many brought their flags down to London for that march the other week. I mean, people, as you've said, people maybe 10 years ago would be terrified to say anything, but people are slowly but surely starting to find their voice. I think there's still quite a long way to go. I still get loads of messages from people who say, oh, I love what you say, but I couldn't possibly say it because I'll lose my job. Very sadly, that is still a thing.
Do you really get that?
Yeah, I get that all the time. People who are terrified to say anything because they think that they'll lose their job. But I mean, I rarely ever post anything political on any of my personal social media accounts because I'll have old friends from school and family and all sorts who will have a big fallout with me and tell me how bigoted and racist my views are. So I just keep it all on a separate
I've been told by my wife at the school gate I mustn't mention politics, and now every single morning I've got all the mothers all talking about it and they all feel exactly the same.
Yeah, well, there will be a lot of people who really want to get it off their chest, and they'll feel like with someone like you that they can confide in you.
I go early now, put the kids on the slide and start spreading the word.
But in their workplace, a lot of them probably daren't say a word after they've spoken to you in the morning.
Daren't? Where's that new word? Daren't?
Dare not? Daren't?
Dent. Sorry, that just made me laugh. Darren, where are you from?
I'm Cornish.
Cornish?
Yeah.
Oh, lovely. That's bloody Jethro country. Whereabouts in Cornwall?
I'm from a place called Polperro.
I know Polperro very well. It's very good for windsurfing, isn't it?
Not really.
Or is that Perranporth?
Yeah. It's a different
I didn't know you're from Cornwall.
Yes.
If you see grass in the middle of the road in Cornwall, it's not necessarily a dual carriageway. Back to the
You can
flag.
still go 60 miles an hour, though.
Yeah,
It's
well,
not full of 20 miles an hour like London.
what you call 5 sheep in Cornwall. Anyway, let's move on. Don't worry, don't hobble your finger, don't get wound up. Brian's very tired today. Do you think, what do you say to the people? I saw an article, I don't know who it was, so I don't want to quote somebody who I don't know the name, but I read an article over the weekend that said that, it actually was Dale Vinn, that's why I brought it up. It was earlier on Ian's show, and he said that he thinks this is a blip, that this country is too decent, too balanced to go down this path. And, you know, Farage, the right, is what he's saying. If you look across Europe, Chloe, this is the way most countries are going. And it surely needs considering that the reason for that is the mad wokeness that we've been obliterated by over the last 10 years.
I mean, this would maybe be a blip if Labour genuinely treated the immigration crisis like an emergency, left the ECHR...
they have today? They have today? They're
No,
stopping
it's
the
just
votes.
all words.
Oh, it's just words.
right.
OK, fair enough.
If they genuinely did sort it out, then maybe the support for reform would wither away. But I do not see that happening. Absolutely no way. And we keep being told, we've had poll after poll come up and reform creeping up. We keep being told that there's a ceiling. When they got to 10% in the polls, we were told that's it, that's the
15,
ceiling.
20, 25,
and then it sort
30,
of crept up.
35, yeah.
15's the max, 20's the max, and now we've got somewhere where they're well over 30%, and they are on track to be potentially the biggest party in the House of Commons, which is absolutely extraordinary. And I don't think that is a blip, but you have got people who think, oh, he's such a dangerous individual, he's like the next Hitler or Mussolini. We couldn't possibly lurch, into that desperation as a country and elect someone so horrible. He's not a horrible individual, he's just a normal guy who talks like a normal person, not this managerial, robotic, speak off an auto cue that you get from Keir Starmer and the rest of them.
I think it's very interesting. Clive and Solihull says the only reason Labour policy has changed today, Giles, on immigration is that they've realised it's a massive vote winner. Only just. Starmer has no beliefs, no idea, no moral compass. He just craves power and he's prepared to do anything to keep it. He is a disgrace in my mind. I think it goes back very simply to what I've said all day. I think if you, as a politician, have in your heart of hearts a belief about where you want to take somebody or a country, right? Then you put your neck on the line and you say that. If you deviate simply to gain power, you will be found out. And I think we've had, and I include Johnson, devastated. If I'd seen him downstairs the other day, I'd have said it, and they're going, you couldn't say that. I'd say, you let me down, mate. I had total belief in you. You could have ruled this country for 10 years. You let me down. I don't know if Farage is the answer. I don't know if the Greens are the answer. I don't know if Plaid Cymru, I'm just trying here. I didn't include Ed Davey, that are the answer. What I want as a voter is somebody to tell me what they're going to do and then do it, despite criticism, and that then says to the people, that's what you're going to get. But I think so many people get into power either without a plan, having just said nothing just to get elected, Keir Starmer. I just think it's quite brave of Farage, but whether it transcends, I don't know. But I do believe our country's in a very, very bad place.
People are craving just somebody who A, has conviction, and B, just cracks on and does something.
Yeah.
I know Labour say, oh, it takes time, we've only been here a year, it's not very long, but we're seeing them going backwards in areas like the boats crossing and crossings and various other numbers, housing, the number of planning applications approved is at 13-year low.
Yeah.
Just all of the areas, it's getting worse and worse and worse as opposed to better. So people have absolutely no hope and feel like they were lied to by this Labour Party that promised almost everything before the general election.
I don't think they were lied to. I don't think the British people were lied. This will shock everybody. I don't think the British people were lied to by Labour. I think the British people had stopped listening in any which way at all to the Tories, and Labour could have basically stood and looked at the camera and gone like that. And they'd have voted for Labour.
They did do that until very close to the general election.
I don't think he won the election. It was sound bites, wasn't it?
Yeah.
First 100 days, it's not jobs for the boys, we're going to be mature, we're going to do the right thing. Nothing. The woman who created 100 Days, Sue Gray, was gone on day 93. I think they've been found out. What I like about Farage putting his neck on the line, whether it's popular or unpopular, and by the way, I read it every day. We're finished. Nigel Farage is a da-da-da. Really? Could it, just answer me this, could it be any worse than the last few years in this country? Men and women who have been in business. Sarah Pochin is on this show a lot. She's been a magistrate for 20 years. You ask her about what she'd do with the justice system and ECHR lawyers and all that rubbish. She's really strong on it, right? But I don't know. Listen, it might be another party, but I think the British people have reached a point where they're
willing to take a chance.
Yeah, and who'd have thought a year ago, even sat here a year ago, like you said, that Reform will be 35 in the polls.
I know, it's crazy. And Labour are making it easy for them because they are just completely failing in every area. And the thing with the people running the Reform Party is people can see that they're genuinely doing this because they want to save this country, because you've got a load of ex-businessmen who could be making far more money if they didn't bother with this politics thing. It's not like they're in it for the money.
That's my answer to Labour when they say you're all a bunch of rich boys doing this. Hold on a minute. Tyson Farage could go back to the city or don't
and they could make more money. I mean, Zia Youssef has sold his business and is deciding to work as a volunteer for the Reform Party, right? These are people who genuinely really want to save this country. Whereas with the Labour Party, you see all these people who've lived in the cabinet. They're almost all of them are people who have been public servants pretty much all their life. Desperate to get any freebie they can get. I mean, they've shown to be more sleazy than the Tories, I would say. I mean, the number of scandals is just...
Would you go out with a Labour? Would you go out with a male Labour voter?
Probably not, but if they were open-minded and could debate properly rather than shouting, it's a possibility.
See, that's what she thinks. Listen, it's great to have you on. Did you watch the golf last night?
No.
Why?
I don't know anything about golf.
You don't know about... What is wrong with the world? Ryan, did you watch the golf?
I'm a woman.
Women are into golf.
Are they?
Ryan said, I couldn't watch it, I was at the airport and my flame was too late. He's so knackered. Look at him. Have you seen him today? Look at him. He looks like he's almost asleep standing up. He's only had 5 hours sleep. It's a bit grumpy today. Thank you very much, dear Chloe Dobbs. I love having you on, political commentator of such brilliance. 0344 499 1000. Is Farage a racist? Is Starmer a copycat? Are Labour in turmoil? Is Reform's lead merely a blip? Anything that you want to talk about in the next 36 minutes ahead of Kev, it's up to you. This is Talk Drive.
Out this week. We're not accusing individual politicians or even that whole party of being racist, but we're saying that policy, that approach is, as we said, immoral, racist, unworkable. What's important here is people want practical, fair, but firm solutions. And I think British people have a real sense of fairness, and people want to see a policy that works, that's fair, and that takes tough action to make things change. And that's exactly what we're setting out. So we're not pulling our punches. We're saying, look, if you want to come in this country, if you want to have indefinite leave to remain, you have to speak English. You have to have contributed. No criminal record, no claiming benefits. You know, all of that should be the baseline.
The simple truth is that Keir Starmer is desperately trying to regain some credibility when it comes to patriotism. And frankly, I don't think anybody is buying it. This is a party that mocks the St George's flag that people are flying from their cars and homes. Keir Starmer himself described all immigration legislation as racist. So he chucks that word around rather too loosely. The fact is, reform policies are nonsense and undeliverable, but...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
6:28, can I just salute the team? But most of all, Jana's in the building, pushing the button. She said to me, I cannot understand, but you can't remember my name, you old git. Jana. That's it, it's fine. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. Hold on a second. Afternoon, Jeremy, from Ron to do. Never mind. My question is, when and how are the Labour government going to implement these new migration measures? Will they have to be approved by Parliament? Good luck to them if they do. Can't see Diane Abbott and co voting through. Ron's in Smethwick. Have you been to Smethwick? That is the centre of Birmingham, mate. That's where you get... That's amazing. Smethwick. Gazza's in Yorkshire. Eh? By gum, stick... Yeah, never mind. Afternoon, Jez. Rachel Thieves has announced hardships to come. What happened to me being £300 better off with the energy bill that she claimed? I am literally, Jez, sinking financially under this government in every possible way. Dave, in South Gloucester, hypocrisy again from Labour and the new talking tough Home Secretary. The legacy left by the Tories. Labour, when out in opposition under the leadership of Starmer, opposed everything the Tories tried to do to deal with immigration, both in the Commons and through their henchmen and women in the Lords, and therefore they have contributed in part to their own legacy. M is in Bath. Posh there. Jez, I was in America over the summer and was even reminded, because I can't speak English, that most houses proudly display the Stars and Stripes. I'm sick to death of this lazy rhetoric that anyone who actually takes pride in the English flag is racist. The only way to combat this is to continue to display it as and when we can, says M in Bath. Well, on this show, we believe this about the flags.
To be offended by your own flag, you have got to be an absolute lemon.
Quite right, too. 6:30, we're live across the UK. Let's go to Derby. Oh, Derby, where if you've flown your flag, you better take it down by the end of the month or the council are coming for you. Christine, welcome to Talk Drive. How are you?
I'm fine, Jeremy. Thank you for letting me say something. I've been giving these two lads who worked tirelessly putting the flags up for money to put the flags up. Mine is on my house and in my back garden, so they can't touch me. But we put poppies up in Derby, and so they're not going to allow poppies either.
Sorry, did you say puppies or poppies?
Poppies.
Oh, poppies. I'm slightly worried that they're going to hang puppies up across Derby. No, quite right. Well, let me ask you this about Derby, because this is a story, if you just tune in today, that the Labour-run Derby Council has told residents, you can come and collect your flags and take them down. You've got a month, but you've had your fun. Honestly, condescending. You've had your fun. Now it's time to take them down. Now, my question to Derby residents is, why should a council have a right to say that to somebody? Why can't you fly your flag if you want to?
Well, because basically they're Labour, for a start, and secondly, they don't like it because Derby looks fantastic with all the...
Why don't they like it? That's what I thought the leader of this country, who's a Labour Prime Minister, said that he's proud of our flag. So why... is a Labour council trying to... and I'm just telling you what you're saying. I'm trying to balance it out.
Yes.
Why are they taking them down? What's their reason for taking it down?
They say it's racist and we're doing it for a reason. We're doing it because we're proud of our country and we want our country to stay proud of its flag.
Do you understand the people who say that it's divisive and has been... what do they say? They say it's been sort of grabbed by the far right, which I think is a pathetic...
It's a national flag. How can you be racist about your own national flag?
I was quite interested last night at the Ryder Cup. I don't know if anybody watched it. All the English boys had St George's flags over their shoulders. Others had their own countries, Ireland and that. I don't understand how... I mean, in Derby, so you've got it off your house, not off a public building. What do you do if the police come round and tell you you've got to move it? What happens then?
It stays there.
So go on.
I've checked with planning that you're allowed to put it on your property. So
say Labour in Derby, went still further. Madness, I'm sure, but say they went further and said, if you don't take, Christine, in Derby, your flag down, we're taking you to court. Would you go to court? Would you go to prison on this principle?
Well, that would be hard because I've got a police pension.
Oh, brilliant. That's great. Great. So, so basically, when the police come around and say, "Oi, oi, Christine," and you can basically say, "Listen, boys, come on. I used to work for the police."
I can say that I've got a Union Jack and a Cornish flag in my backyard because my husband was an armed police officer in London, and he gave his working life to police, and he swore allegiance to the flag.
Good for you. Cornish, 2 Cornish people in 10 minutes. Where are you from in Cornwall?
I'm not from Cornwall. My husband was. That's why I've got a Cornish flag up. He came from Lou, actually, very next to Paul Perro.
Lou?
Lou.
Lou?
Yeah, not the Lou.
I know where Lou is. I'm not stupid, you know. I might sound it and look it. Great to have you on. An ex-copper's wife, bless you. Christine in Derby. Thank you very much indeed. This is the story in Derby. The City Council offered residents a month to take the flags down. Condescending gits. You've had your fun. Now take your flag down because, frankly, it is disrespectful to everybody else. Is it? I don't understand how it's disrespectful. Are we going to an ad break then, or what are we doing? No, we're not going to an ad break. Oh, what? Ah, there we go. It's delightful. Andrew Allison is the head of campaigns at Popular Conservatism. It's a slightly worrying word. Andrew Allison, good afternoon. How are you?
Good afternoon, Jeremy. I'm fine. Are you?
There he is, in all his glory. Right, let me do the Jeremy Kyle test for Monday. Did you watch the Ryder Cup last night?
No.
What is wrong with the people that are surrounded? Why not?
I usually do as well, Jeremy, but I just didn't get into the Ryder Cup this weekend. It's just a little bit too busy.
Oh, bless your heart. Head of campaigns at Popular Conservatism. Let's take it up then, straight away. Derby Council, you just heard from Christine in Derby. A copper's wife, a guy who swore allegiance to the flag. She's got flags in her back garden. She says they can do one. But Labour Council in Derby are saying, listen, you've had your fun over the last month. This is condescending, isn't it? Operation Raise the Colours, you've had your moment, and take them down and we're going to prosecute you. I don't know what the hell's happening to my country. How are we allowed to be told what to hang outside our own house? Talk to me.
Well, our own house, we're allowed to pretty much hang what we like as long as it's not too offensive. But they're talking about removing stuff from lampposts. But condescending is exactly what I was going to say, Jeremy, if you hadn't have said it. Because it's sort of saying, well, we've allowed you to do it. We could have just taken them down straight away, but we've let you have your fun. Now it's time to end. We're in charge now. Oh, and by the way, if you don't pay your council tax, we'll make sure you're banged up. But that is what they like. I mean, people would have stopped putting flags up when it gets really dark. The weather is absolutely appalling. It's slashing down with rain. It's blowing a gale into the winter months. I'm sure there have been much fewer of them around anyway. But no, they just have to sort of be the job's worth. But
that point, just jumping in, not trying to be a pain, there would be less of them. What I want to understand, how we've got to a point where my choice to do something is being questioned by an ideology being spread by... I don't understand. There's much about America, including what they did on the Gulf last night. I hated it, right? But they are proud of their flag, whether it's public buildings, streets, leisure facilities, their homes. I am sick to death of being told that anybody that flies the flag is racist. I don't think it's fair. I've watched these people on television programmes and they sit there and go, yeah, but the thing about the flag is it's divisive. Why is it divisive? Oh, a few far right have once waved it. Honestly, Andrew, I don't have it in me. It drives me insane.
The only reason, Jeremy, I said is there'll be fewer of them around in the winter months. Yeah. It's just a simple fact. And I think the council have just created the problem for themselves. But you're absolutely right. I mean, you go to America, the Stars and Stripes have flown everywhere, including state flags. I remember telling your colleague, Peter Caldwell, a few weeks ago when we were discussing flags, I remember stopping at this Taco Bell, sort of Indiana somewhere, near Indianapolis. And on the top, there was 4 Stars and Stripes on the top. And there was also a couple of Indiana state flags on there, proudly flying. I mean, could you imagine an American council just saying to residents, oh, no, you can't fly the flag?
Well, what would happen was if they did, within about 2 minutes, Donald Trump would sack them all and close the council down, which is quite interesting. Let's talk about, from a Conservative point of view. Do you call yourself, are you a Conservative, it would be fair to say?
Well, I'm Conservative with a small c, and I'm still a member of the Conservative Party.
Let's talk about today. Over the weekend, Nigel Farage and Reform announced quite sweeping policies on the right leave to remain, the right to leave to remain in this country, basically saying, to paraphrase Andrew, look, 2 things. If you come to this country now, you have a criminal record because we're going to check you. You don't work. You just live on benefits. You bring independence. That's a drain. Sorry, you got to go. As for the people who have been here for a long time, who haven't worked, haven't paid, haven't learnt English, have brought their independence, we're going to look at your case again. Not people who have worked, like a caller earlier, not those people, but we're not in a position financially where we can accept this anymore. It's something we've got to question. He was labelled a racist and a bigot and everything else. Today, Shabana Mahmood, the new Home Secretary, comes out and says that we're going to look at the right to remain. And from now on, under a Labour government, if you haven't paid national insurance, i.e. you haven't worked, you're on benefits, you've got a criminal record, you haven't worked in the community, you don't speak particularly good English, we're going to get rid of you as well. But we're not going back because that's racist. We're just going from now because that's not racist. Again, and I just want you to be honest here, love him or loathe him, there's much of a split here on Nigel Farage. He seems to me to always have the ability to have the ear or the sense to grab the attention of the British public, and everybody else seems to follow. Shabana Mahmood today. Where the hell, my friend, is Kemi Badenoch? Because somebody said to me today, oh, she'll be out next week at her conference going, ECHR, we're going to leave it. Farage did that 9 months ago, man. It doesn't seem to... I mean, if you go to the Labour conference, I'm told, all they're talking about is a party that's got 5 MPs. Her Majesty's opposition is becoming less relevant by the day, Andrew.
It certainly appears like that. I mean, I've said many a time over the past months, ever since Kemi became leader, that she has to put out more conservative, not conservative principles. I believe she's got conservative principles, but more conservative positions. Yeah. Detailed policies can come later. I mean, what Nigel Farage is doing for reform is not coming out with detailed policies. He's just giving you what his positions are on this and the direction of travel of a reform government. And yeah, I mean, Kemi last week was a little bit slow out of the blocks on the ID cards thing. Nigel Farage was saying no to ID cards. Simple as that. It was very simple.
What do you think about those? What do you think about those?
Oh, totally opposed to them. I mean, they won't work anyway because they will not stop illegal migration for a variety of reasons. But it's also very sinister. And the way that the government could misuse digital ID cards, and some of the Labour ministers that have come out supporting them, I think, have just made a damn fool of themselves.
Just to finish, I was tasked with trying to strip it down. Shabana Mahmood finished with a sentence which I think it encapsulates the problems. She said, we need to make these changes because we need to be, as I know we can be, this open, tolerant and generous society. Rob, my mate from Newcastle, says open and tolerant is the reason we're in the mess we are and the mugs that we've taken for. This is nonsense. Even the Labour members know. Open, yeah, our borders. Tolerant and generous. I would say this, Andrew Ellison. The reason the British public are up in arms is because we're open and tolerant and generous to each and every person who frankly hasn't either earned it or deserves it, to the detriment of people who are crying out for their government to, like, you know, lower their energy bills or make their food prices a bit cheaper, or just generally not say to them, thanks for what you've done, back of the queue, you're not important. That's I say it every day, but it's how I see it.
It's how you define open and how you define tolerant, really, Jeremy, isn't it? I think we are certainly a tolerant society. We've always been a welcoming society. And those people who are genuinely in need, who are genuine refugees, we have taken people in. And I think the vast majority of the British public are still in favour of that. But this idea that people just come across here on rubber dinghies who are essentially just economic migrants, we don't have a clue who they are. We don't know whether they've got criminal records. We don't know whether we're bringing in murderers or rapists. We simply do not know. People are not willing to basically put their families at risk, because I certainly wouldn't. You wouldn't want to do that. And that's so basically saying that we're going to send these people back and this needs to stop. It is not being a closed society. It's not being an intolerant society. It's just a society that's trying to protect itself.
It's trying to protect itself and doing things from a commonsensical point of view rather than bending to an ideology. Andrew, it's great to catch up though, pal. Watch the golf next time. Andrew Allison, thank you very much indeed. Head of campaigns at Popular Conservatism. Right, 90 minutes to 7. This is the moment of the show where Jodie starts to smile, because striding towards Studio One, the night news editor for The Sun. I know him as John Lucas. She knows him as Sexy Sarge. He's next about tomorrow's paper.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Here's ahead of that Morning Glory with the legend that is Mike Graham. Back tomorrow morning, 6 o'clock. It's the only way to wake up in the United Kingdom. And don't forget, we'll give you more details, but Mike's and my show, The World of Common Sense, at the O2 Shepherd's Bush Empire, Saturday, November the 15th. I am told, because they've done the tier. It's a few tickets. You can get it, ticketmaster.com. Me and Mr. Graham, I'll be in my my supportive role. 7:15, ticketmaster.com. Make me smile. We say a very good evening to Sexy Sarge. I was downstairs the other day. I don't know who it was. Somebody said, somebody from the Sun said, hello, it's nice to meet you. And was outside talking, and they said, he loves it, old John Lucas. He's getting a right old reputation in the newsroom. Is that right?
Well, that's what I hear, yeah.
Let's try and get through today without saying the word jizz. Right, 03444 499. Well, he did actually get it wrong the other day. He was supposed to say Jilly, and he said Jizzy. Tomorrow's paper, this is I Salute the Sun, the gobful of ire. What a great headline.
Yeah, absolutely. Got to give respect to our backbench, best in the business. We're coming up with these. So this will, it may well be the front page, depends on sort of what comes out of conference. But this is the big row between J.K. Rowling, Harry Potter author, and the former child stars of that film franchise, namely Emma Watson. So this has been going on for about 5 years now because of J.K.'s stance on trans issue, and you know, she's been very, very vocal about.
She's had death threats this
Oh
morning.
yeah, massive, huge, lots of death threats, and just for, you know, daring to voice her opinion that actually a lot of these policies that come out of the what she would say is a trans ideology aren't actually safe for women, and she's had to endure the fact that she felt very protective of these child stars, particularly Emma Watson and Daniel Radcliffe, and they've been on the other side of the debate.
The thing is, there's two ways that I look at this. The first is, these four would be nout without the genius that is J.K. Rowling. But what it does for me, on a serious note, and this is why I love the fact the Sun are doing this tomorrow, Emma Watson goes on this podcast and says, despite our clashes, I treasure the importance of J.K. Rowling. It is typical, in my humble opinion, these youngsters, right, they've got an opinion, it's great, but you're going to trash J.K. Rowling, who happens to have another opinion, but you're not just going to trash her. She's getting death threats, she's being ostracised, she's the very woman that gave you a chance. Why cannot certain sections, certainly in that argument, say, that's your view, that's my view? But the younger, they won't have that. They won't have it, and I fully support J.K.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's what J.K.'s come out. She's had this big, she's written a huge, you know, almost get a novella out of it, a 700-word sort of riposte to this, and she says, well, look, Emma is just, she doesn't have the experience of life that I have. She says she is ignorant in the sense of...
She said she's ignorant of how ignorant she is.
Well, she says, would Emma... I mean, Emma's made, I don't know, 40 million quid or something like that she's got in the bank. Has she ever had to use a homeless shelter? Has she ever had to go on a mixed sex hospital ward? Has she even been in a high street changing room since childhood? Has she had to strip off at a swimming pool? You know, has she had to use a rape crisis centre like lots of ordinary people do? And that's where JK's coming from. She's looking at it from the point of view of women who are just living a normal life, and you have these privileged film stars who are jumping on a very fashionable cause. But the point is that what this shows, or potentially shows, is that actually the tide is turning a little bit
maybe
against this, you know, what people would say is an ideology.
Really interesting. Follow that in the Sun tomorrow. More also about the Madeleine McCann suspect, Christian Bruckner, came out of hiding to bizarrely try and confront the prosecutor, who he insists kidnapped and killed her. This story doesn't go away, does it? Bruckner's
bizarre this man. I mean, we've been over there since Bruckner got out, so this is 10 days ago. He'd served a 7-year sentence for this horrific sex attack that he carried out. Never been arrested or charged or anything over the Madeleine McCann case, but he's obviously prime suspect. He's on a tag, and you know, we've found him boasting at a mobile phone shop. You know, I know all the secrets. He's trying to
He's too Bob short of tenpence, isn't he?
Yeah, exactly. And he says, "Oh, look, this is a witch hunt. I've got all this media attention upon me." Weirdly, he's made his way 250 miles across the country to go and confront the prosecutor with, I have to say, the Sky News cameras with him in a very...
Well, that's why he's gone, isn't it?
Sort of strange setup. And then he's had a chat afterwards, but...
The Sun are following that. It's a fascinating... Christian Bruckner, what do you make of that? I didn't know this. Mylene Klaas, Peter Windsor, 61, in court. She's going to give evidence tomorrow. He's an obsessed stalker. Whatever people are, the way that some people in the public eye get treated by people like this is disgusting, isn't it?
Yeah, well, the court heard that Mylene's endured in months of this. So what the evidence in this case is this chap, Windsor, has sent her loads of unwanted gifts. He sent her policewoman costumes, Catwoman costumes. He sent an air pistol. He's bombarded her with these items. He's also accused of stalking classic FM co-presenter Katie Breathwick, and sending them very disturbing messages, suggesting that he's going to turn up at their house.
Klaas giving evidence tomorrow, ongoing trial, so obviously we can't say a lot, but the Sun will follow that. This is my favourite headline ever. Call the Lice Squad, please. This is smugglers are making a fortune trafficking the latest weird pet obsession, wood lice. Really?
Believe it or not, it's big money.
There's only one Mike Graham. What's he doing in here? Look, Mike Graham, come in. Sorry, but just fine. He can just stand and talk to me. Go on.
Well, the incredible thing about this, there's big money in wood lice. This story.
Big money in wood lice.
In wood lice, this story has been the baby of our associate news editor Alex West.
Alex West,
who you know well.
Yes, Alex
He's
West.
championed this one.
Yep.
Big investigation by him, and what we've found is that cocaine dealers, drug dealers, are actually giving up the trade, to get involved in the wood lice trade. So these things, they come from...
Sorry, they're not selling cocaine or smuggling it, they're now smuggling wood lice.
Yeah, because by weight, think about it, there are these collectors, they collect very rare wood lice. They go under the name of Rubber Ducky, Panda King. They could be multicoloured. One wood louse can go for 50 quid. 50
One?
Yeah.
I know. Right. Listen, amazing. It's going to be an amazing newspaper tomorrow. The Sun. John Luke, are you here tomorrow night? I need a bit more commitment. 2 nights on the trot.
Well, what day is it? Tuesday?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be here.
Ready? You see what I mean, Jodie? It's not just a pretty face. It's also quite intelligent. He knows that Tuesday comes after Monday. You're a top man. Sun tomorrow. Don't miss it. 8 minutes to 7. We're live across the UK on Talk Drive.
He is trying to make
2.3 million people have already signed a petition against this idea. This is not the same as...
people, Julia. 4 million voted for reform. 4 million people voted Reform UK, and not even all of them have signed the petition.
What's that
so
got
it's
to
not
do with
exactly
anything?
a mass uprising, is it?
What's that? I think 2.3 million people in 3 days signing a petition
members oppose. No.
I'm pretty sure the Reform UK members can make up their own mind. There'll be plenty of Labour members. It's not a stretch of the impact.
I'm merely pointing out that is not a lot in terms of a population.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
5 to 7, Kev is here with his political asylum. He's just come from a high profile... Oh, Kev!
All right, Kev's here.
Wait,
all right, hang on.
Okay, Mike's here, Kev's here.
Yeah.
It's like the old days. Kev, can you get it? Can you get in there, me old son? You all right?
Yeah. World's greatest.
Mike Graham, are you preparing?
Anything I can plug into, have I?
Really?
Yeah, maybe I have.
Yeah, no, you have. No, I'm sure there is.
Mike Graham, are you in here promoting your show? What's on breakfast tomorrow?
No idea.
No idea.
No.
You say that every time.
But we've got a new thing though, because
so have I.
The Labour government, fake news. The Labour government don't like talking to me, right? So what we do now is we get somebody from the Sun who interviews somebody from the Labour government while I'm on the show, but I don't get to ask them any questions.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's interesting.
What's that all about?
But we get quite rightly, we get asked to sort of provide balance. You know, can we speak to Labour?
Right.
So I've had my team all bloody day trying to get someone from Labour to come on and talk about their conference.
You know, you're absolutely right. Right, come on and talk about Shabana Mahmood, the fact you've changed direction and changed language.
Yeah.
They won't come on.
No.
I remember when they were in opposition, they were on the whole time with us, and that does say something, doesn't it?
It does.
It tells you they're not professionals, right? That's the problem.
And by the way, I've been watching this today. I've been watching it at home, and it's like
me.
It is like
me.
No, I'm watching the Labour conference,
not me then.
and it's like Alice in Wonderland. It's like Through the Looking Glass.
You can't say
we
Alice
are
could be a
being
man.
massively gaslit by these people who are literally standing there telling us they've had a great year. Come on, stop insulting our intelligence.
You two you're far more experienced than me, but I don't believe the British public are up for being gaslit.
This is why the political asylum is an essential part of what we do here, right? Kevin O'Sullivan has been doing this for a long time, right?
He has.
Some would say too long, but I wouldn't say
including
that.
me.
No,
including
I would
me.
say he used to slag me off in the newspapers.
Here's what we really want to know: is what about Matthew Wright's wife, ex-wife, going into the Big Brother house? I'm getting asked a lot of questions about that.
It's not. Right? It's not his ex-wife. It's Caroline Monk.
Yeah.
No,
she's not.
Who he did.
Do you
go
know
out
anything
with.
about her?
Yes.
Okay.
She's been around my house a few times for drinks and stuff like that. She's an interesting woman. She's an interesting woman.
Yes, haven't they also got on TV, Kev, for a minute? Get your head out of immigration. Didn't I read in the newspaper that they've got the person that threw a milkshake at Nigel Farage in the Big Brother house?
Have they done that? I didn't know
literally
that.
read
That's
that.
outrageous.
I don't know if that's true. I literally read it. If it's wrong, I retract it. But I think the person that committed a criminal offence against a politician could have been a brick. We said that at the time.
Absolutely.
Potentially. Check that out, right? Because I think that's absolutely right.
Yeah.
Kev, mate, class as ever. What you got?
Well, obviously, we're going to... Keir Starmer calling not just Nigel Farage, but Reform UK.
By the way, confirmed by Ryan, I was right. The person that threw a milkshake at Nigel Farage in the Big Brother
house. Can I
house.
just ask one question?
Yes.
Do either of you have any kind of trust that you want to tell me about? Every single Labour cabinet minister seems to have some kind of trust. Angela Rayner's got a trust. Yeah. You know, Keir Starmer had a trust.
Oh, I thought you said a trust. I've got a trust.
Well, there's a
Liz
trust. No, but they're Champagne socialist. He's got a donkey trust, right? Keir Starmer has got a donkey trust.
He's got a field, doesn't he, or something?
A field with donkeys in it. He said that he wanted to give his mother the ability to stroke a donkey. I'm sorry that she wasn't well. I'm not having it. No. I'm not having it.
It's a very strange story.
Weird story.
I've never been likened to a donkey. Crack on.
Well, you know.
Hung like a donkey.
Yes,
anybody ever said that?
Precisely.
Bit of an ass. But apart from that, so we're going to talk about basically Labour or Keir Starmer labelling us, Reform, millions of British people racists. I mean, he was doing it a year ago, wasn't it? You're all far right. Now we're all racists. Everybody he doesn't agree with, he just wants to call silly names.
But my point is this: I don't think the British public will swallow it.
I totally agree with you.
But I want to ask you a more important question. Fulham won, Aston Villa unbeaten this season 3.
Well, I did quite enjoy. I quite enjoyed what.